Hello, 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 everybody. Broadcasting to you live from the Orion spiral arm of the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, somewhere in between two formerly tariffed nations. My name is Brian Engelman. That's Mike Bara. That's Jim Mitchell. And this is Strictly Football, powered by the Unhappy Hour here on the NewAmericanMedia.com. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to talk football. Oh my gosh, so much action in the NFL. Free agency, as Jim said, free agency this year might be more important than the draft. We will discuss what that means. And of course, we'll kind of buzz through what happened to all of the teams in the league, some of the signings, and it's hard to keep track who went where. I had no idea Najee Harris was going to Los Angeles. He's on my dynasty football team, and that has big implications for me. So we'll talk about that. Then we'll talk about some of the early betting odds. Jim comes in to give us the skinny on where the good money's at. And guess what? Here's a little hint. Cleveland's not a bad spot to put a couple of bucks down if you want a big return.
They always are, Brian. They're always a good bet every year.
Yeah, it's a good bet if you want to burn it or flush it down the toilet or catch lightning in a bottle. And
he doesn't have $100 they can throw around once a year, right?
Exactly. So we'll get to some betting odds and we'll do a mock draft on today's episode. So let's jump right into it. All right. First off, gentlemen, how are we doing? It's been weeks and weeks. Mike Bara, first to you. How have you been, sir? What's new?
Well, it was sad and depressing with no football until the Seahawks got rid of Geno Smith, and now I'm in a really good mood. So that makes me very happy. And there's a lot to talk about there with Pete and Geno getting back together and him getting run out of Seattle. Thank God. A lot of interesting stuff to talk about. Jim's a Seahawks fan too, so probably might have a little bit of a disagreement on that. I don't know, but it was interesting to see just to see some of the movement, and we still have some stories out there. We have Aaron Rodgers still floating out there, and I think that's a story. I think Russell Wilson moving on for me to New York is a story. I just want to see somebody just say, okay, you've been in the league 13 years, call your own plays. If you see something, take advantage of it. And when you do that, the guy throws for 400 yards and 3 touchdowns or something, or 4 touchdowns. So that's an interesting story to me. The Steelers situation, I think, is a mess. And of course, the Browns sitting there at number 2. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? What are they going to do?
Exactly.
Lots of cool stuff.
Mr. Jim, what's the latest? What so far between the Super Bowl and now? Any stories particularly catch your interest? Like Mike was saying, as a Seahawks fan, or anything else in the league that was a little surprising, perhaps?
Yeah, I think Mike's pretty excited that his old buddy Pete Carroll is now a neighbor of ours. He's here in Vegas. But the training facility is way the hell out in Henderson. It's probably a 45-minute drive
nowhere.
From where Mike and I live. Mike and I actually live in Vegas, and Pete probably doesn't. But Mike's probably thinking about breaking bread with Pete. One afternoon, taking him to lunch. Such a big fan. But
because I can't wait to say to him, Redskins game 2020. 4th and 1 on the 49-yard line. You just intercepted them. You're up 20-3. You go down, you score a touchdown. You put the game away. You're averaging 5 yards a carry during that game. It's late in the third quarter. Why the hell did you punt?
I don't think he's got the same OC, here in Vegas, as he had with the Seahawks. But
I think that is going to be an interesting storyline in Las Vegas with Tom Brady buying into ownership. He is the quarterback whisperer, he's bought in, and they brought him in so that he could offer his opinions. And the longer they go without getting a top tier quarterback talent, Geno did come in, and we'll talk about that. We'll dedicate some time there. But I'm curious. I'm curious if the Raiders are going to be big movers here. Obviously, they have Geno, but is Geno really the long-term answer, or it's just hit the ground running? He knows how to run Pete's system. And then we got to go get our guy.
You know what? I'm just going to say this before we even get to the Seahawks stuff. Geno is the long-term answer. If the question is, do you want a quarterback who will throw a game-destroying 99-yard pick six when you're at the 4-yard line about to score the go-ahead touchdown? If that's the question, Geno Smith is the answer.
That's kind of funny. All right, let's buzz through the teams here. There's a lot to talk about. What about Josh Allen with the Buffalo Bills, guys? 6-year deal, $330 million, $250 guaranteed. I mean, that's a huge signing. Mike, to you first. I mean, Josh Allen, totally worth it. No reservations there. It's just going right quarterback.
Yeah, worth every penny. He hasn't won some big games, but I think he's been with Bills teams that are not very complete. And he carried the team last year and won the MVP. And really, it's it's well-deserved MVP. Lamar also deserved it. I have to say that, but Lamar really didn't deserve it the year before.
Mm-hmm.
Dak probably should have won it based on the stats and the season he had, or even Josh Allen should have won it last year. So Lamar got screwed this year when he had a fantastic season by winning it the year before when he didn't deserve it. So, I think that's whatever deal you can get to keep Josh Allen on your team is a winner for you. That you won the offseason right there.
Right. And Jim, I saw something yesterday or 2 days ago. The betting odds came out. If I was looking at it right, it looked like the Bills were the favorite amongst favorites to win the Super Bowl. I don't know. Was I reading that correctly? Did you see the same?
The Bills are now plus 750 as far as winning the Super Bowl, which means you can lay 100 to win 750. The odds-on favorite right now are the Eagles. They're plus 600.
Oh, okay.
So that's the low number on the board. The high number are 4 different teams, one of which is your Cleveland Browns.
Yes.
They are 20,000. They are plus 20,000, as are the Saints and 2 other teams also. I can check that right now real quick.
I think the Giants are up there, the Saints, the Browns. I mean, maybe the Titans, honestly. Usually just sort of an inversion of what the draft is.
Yeah,
right.
The Titans are not good.
No.
Yeah, the Jets, the Browns, the Giants, they're all plus 20,000. And then waiting in the weeds are the Titans. They're plus 17,000.
Yeah.
So,
the signing there for the Bills too that's interesting to me is Joey Bosa. Can either of the Bosas stay healthy? If they can, you got a really good player there, but I don't know.
And he got a 1-year, $12 million deal. It's 12.6 with $12 million guaranteed, max of 15.6. They got Khalil Shakir re-signed, $60 million over 4 years. Man, 15 a year for Khalil Shakir. Okay. Larry Ogunjobi, he was great on the Browns. He was decent on the middle or in the middle, clogging things up at defensive tackle. All right, let's move over to the Dolphins. I don't know. Zach Wilson, Alexander Madison. I had no idea. Running back, he's over there. Any other names jump out here? Not so much. Not all that much on the Dolphins.
No, the Dolphins, didn't do much.
No. Hey, but you know what? How about this one? Stephon Diggs goes to the Patriots. 3 years, $69 million. Josh Dobbs, a backup quarterback. I mean, the Patriots.
Yeah, I think that's just going to be a thorn in Mike Vrabel's side, for a while. Diggs is not a real personality guy, let's say. Everywhere he's been a malcontent.
Yeah.
He made that great catch with the Vikings, and then shortly after that left and went to the Bills. And spent a short time at the Bills, and then left there. I mean, he's a nomad, in the NFL. He's traveling from team to team for other reasons other than what Ryan Fitzpatrick had a reason for. He's become a journeyman.
Well,
for a team that'll tolerate his BS.
Yeah, it was kind of reminding me as you were saying that a little bit like an Odell Beckham. It's like every year he's on another team, it seems like.
Great analogy, Odell Beckham. He's Odell Beckham without the dyed hair,
Yeah. just guys who are pretty good players, but not worth the money and,
Right.
generally
Not
not
worth
worth
the
the
headache.
hassle. Yeah.
Well, the Jets went a different direction at quarterback. Obviously, we know they let Aaron Rodgers go about his merry way. He might go on a smoke retreat and retire, or he might come back and lead the Vikings. I'm hearing that's the rumor, a 1-year deal to the Vikings. Who knows? We'll see how it shakes out. But we have seen some success lately from quarterbacks in their second and third stop. Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, and now Justin Fields is going from the Bears over to the New York Jets, signing a 2-year, $40 million deal, $30 million guaranteed. Mike, what do you make of Justin Fields on the Jets here?
I've always liked Justin Fields. I felt like he was the best quarterback in that 2021 draft, and he was the guy that I would have liked to have had because of his experience at Ohio State. He played a lot of games. He played in big games, and he played well in big games. And, he had the legs, and he does make plays with his legs. I think the problem is he's just not productive in the passing game. I wanted the Seahawks to go after him last year as their quarterback of the future and maybe spend some time developing him and seeing if you could get something out of him in the passing game. But, the Steelers gave him a chance, 5 or 6 games, and he just wasn't productive in the passing game. And I don't know what it is. It's something instinctual. It's something, some guys have it and some guys don't. Somebody said about Michael Penix in Atlanta, I don't know what it is, but he has it. And when it comes to passing, the passing game, I don't know what it is, but Justin Fields doesn't have it. So I think you're getting a guy who's probably not ever going to be a Jalen Hurts, but in the passing game, but can be a Jalen Hurts in the running game. And that's, he's a stopgap until they can figure something out of quarterback.
Yeah, and they got Garrett Wilson from the Buckeyes going over there as well. So, reuniting of Team Buckeye. Jim, what do you make of what's going on there with the Jets and retooling? I mean, yeah, they got somebody for a 2-year deal, but it's sort of less than going rate. Are they going to be players in the draft, do you think? At quarterback?
I would say probably yes. I'm not as high on Justin Fields as Mike is. I think Justin Fields has a lot of bad body language on the field, and the close-ups reading his face, after a bad play is executed on the field. I just think in a poker game, Justin Fields it would be a target. I mean, I would just target him and. He's just got a lot of bad body language and a lot of bad reads. I think I agree with you, Brian. I think that the Jets are probably going to look for another stopgap quarterback, for that team. And there's a reason why, the Jets are plus 20,000, and nobody thinks they're going to win the Super Bowl. That's why that number is so high. So, they are constantly a building team, and probably the best thing they did was move on from Aaron Rodgers because, Aaron Glenn's not going to put up with his BS.
Yep, and we're all just waiting to see if Aaron's going to play somewhere or not. One of the big storylines, and Mike and I were texting over the past several weeks, and I just kind of kept saying, all right, Mike, as soon as we figure out where Aaron Rodgers is going, let's do this offseason show. And it's like 1 week turns to 2.
Still haven't figured it out. Yeah.
I'm like, Mike, we're running out of time. The draft's next week. Let's do this offseason.
Well, I know where you should go. I'm going to have an opinion on that when we get to that team.
Oh, okay. Perfect. Well, then let's keep buzzing through. We're just going to do a quick overview of where some of the top players went. Any thoughts on this? Baltimore Ravens, it's always important to figure out they are a perennial Super Bowl contending team. And Lamar Jackson is great, but he's a slender quarterback playing in the AFC North, getting a lot of hits. Cooper Rush, who had been backing up Dak Prescott, going there to be the backup to Lamar. Any thoughts on backup QB? Because look, a lot of teams end up using backup QB. It's a very important position.
Well, Lamar is in his 6th season or 7th season now. It's the time when if a player's going to get soft tissue injuries or leg injuries, he starts to get them about this time in his career. Lamar doesn't take that many hits. I don't think he's been very durable, so I don't think it's a big issue. You look at those signings, and the key thing is they kept Ronnie Stanley. They kept the other offensive lineman. I forget his name. It's up there on the list, but But
Ben Cleveland and Ronnie Stanley.
They have a good offensive line. They've drafted some big guys. They kept their best players there because they had a good offensive line.
And Mike, that's a 3-year, $60 million contract for Ronnie Stanley.
Yeah, well, he's a left tackle, and he's a quality starting left tackle. He may not be, an absolute Pro Bowl monster or all pro, but he's a good player. And then DeAndre Hopkins just doesn't impress me. I don't think he's got anything left. So, I don't have much to say about the rest of it, but I think the key thing is they kept their offensive line together. And I guess Cooper Rush, is he really even a backup from Lamar? For Lamar, can you win games with Cooper Rush? I don't think so.
Jim, any thoughts on Ravens?
They're picking 27th this year, unless they move up. I don't see any reason why they would move up. They had it just seemed like the same movie last season, at the end of the season, traveling up to Buffalo, and I don't think Lamar lost that game. Andrews dropped a couple of passes, and
that was a brutal drop.
Now they got that off-field shit with Justin Tucker.
The Deshaun Watson treatment, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Or let's not absolve the owners. Let's not forget Robert Kraft. Come on, it's an NFL thing. It's not just one guy. Deshaun was like the lightning rod for the Me Too movement, but the whole NFL's, not that everyone's doing it, but a lot of people are.
Yeah, we're not ready to call him Mark Cosby right now, but it's they don't need the off the field distractions, and they've got two distractions, to worry about now. So.
Yeah.
All right, let's move over to the Bengals. I was actually looking at their stadium yesterday. I was up in Cincinnati. Pretty cool area over there, Paycor. There's this neat little bar that goes all the way through. It's like O'Malley's in the alley. It's really narrow, but it goes all the way back to the point where it turns into another bar called the Blind Pig, and you walk out the back of the Blind Pig and you're looking at the Bengals stadium. It's a really neat place. So let's kind of buzz through this. Holy crap, Jamar Chase, 4-year, $161 million deal. T. Higgins resigns 4-year, $115 million deal. Good Lord. That is a ton of money at wide receiver. Of course, we're going to focus on that, but let me just kind of buzz through a couple other things. P. Ryan at running back, 2-year deal, $3.8 million. Gesicki, an underrated tight end, I believe, 3-year deal, $25 million, $12 million guaranteed. Who else? Bunch of guys. All right, so let's kind of talk about the wide receivers and what they did to help Joey Burrow win some games over there, Mike Bara.
Well, again, the Bengals, I guess, at least understand how you win Super Bowls in the modern era. You get the quarterback, and then you give him people to throw the ball to. And, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase are the best combo wide receivers in the NFL. It costs you that much to keep them. You got to pay it. What's I think is the odd situation there. They have the same issues they had last year. They got to build along both defensive and offensive lines would help them a lot, and maybe get a running back. But this is a really deep running back draft, so you can probably pick up a guy as an undrafted free agent that's going to be outstanding if you know what you're doing. But what's weird is there the defensive end, whose name escapes me at the moment, once out.
Cam Sample? No,
it's the other guy that's had I got to look up their roster, but
Joe Asai.
Trey Hendrickson.
Thank you.
Right.
He wants out and he wants a new deal, and he's 31, and they don't want to pay him, but he's their best defensive lineman, their best pass rusher. So, we'll see what happens in the draft. I think if they move him in the draft. I think teams do not want to give a first-round pick for him because they got to give him a deal. So, it's like they maybe are just out of cap space, but really, and I'll double check that cap space. But really, they have cheap owners, and this is one of the things where cheap owners don't want to pay that guy. If you're close, if you feel like you're close, you pay the Trey Hendricksons of the world. But I just don't think they do. want to. So they're kind of in that.
Let me just tell you this real quick. Latest news, according to Grok. By the way, if you're not using Grok for your searches instead of Google, I recommend it. They give you a lot of the quickest access to the actual answers to what you're really looking for, minus the wacko slant. But they're saying Trey Hendrickson, who led the NFL with 17 and a half sacks last year, he's been vocal about his frustration with the Bengals front office, poor communication, and stalled extension talks. I mean, geez, led the NFL in sacks, and but look, we'll talk about the Cleveland Browns maybe next, right? We had a defensive end that was frustrated and wanted the hell out of his team.
I just checked. I mean, he's got $16 million salary this year. He probably wants some guarantees, but they can handle that. They got $23 million in cap space. So again, the owners, Mike Brown, is probably saying, well, I paid those wide receivers. I don't want to pay this guy too. So I think we're in that situation. So we'll see what happens, but I don't know, Jim. I don't know what would you do with Trey Hendrickson? If I could get 2 second-round picks out of him, I think I'd probably go for it, but I don't know.
Yeah, I'd probably go ahead and move him, since they're spending so much money on Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I mean, I would have paid Chase, but I don't know about Higgins. I mean, Chase is definitely their number one. And you're right, Mike. The Bengals are historically been, on the cheap side of spending money on their players, and they probably just realize now, they got to start scratching some checks, and start paying people to keep them, and Burrow's another one with the body language. I mean, you can see him at the microphone. He's just, I don't think he's long for the Bengals. He's a great quarterback, probably, top 4, top 5 in the league. And, I think that, they should probably start spending their money more on the O-line to protect him.
Here's the thing. Who would you rather pay, T. Higgins or DK Metcalf? Because DK Metcalf is making quite a bit more than T. Higgins is going to make this year. So, what do you think about that? He's got more total value, and his average per year is higher. And I mean, I don't really have that much of an issue with paying T. Higgins because I think he's been real productive. How do you rate them as players? Which one do you like better, Metcalf or Higgins?
DK Metcalf is, he's probably more well known. I mean, there's more stories on the news about DK than there is about T. Higgins, but it is what they have, and what they have is T. Higgins, So I guess you got to pay him, but I think the second most important position on a football team is the offensive line, not necessarily wide receivers.
Well, they say quarterback and pass rusher are the two most coveted positions when you're building the team, a defensive end and a quarterback. But yeah, your quarterback's only as good as the percentage of plays that he's upright.
That's right.
It doesn't matter how good you are if you get bent in half and you're out for the year, and then you got a bum knee for the rest of your career. Like, you sort of have to build that offensive line, or else you're in trouble. And with a great offensive line, you get that extra half second, which gets your wide receivers a couple more options. It gives your running backs a little bit more time to get through the hole. It helps every aspect of your team when the offensive line is on point. And I've been victim many times of a Cleveland Browns team that had positional players, had talented positional players, but they just didn't have what it took to keep a cohesive line together. And the Cleveland Browns, we're up at the Browns. We might as well talk about them. I mean, we lost our offensive line coach to the Tennessee Titans. His kid is the head coach of the Titans. So he went to go coach with his boy. And our offensive line took a step backward last year. So obviously an aging offensive line is going to be a problem for the Cleveland Browns. We did sign Cornelius Lucas and Tevin Jenkins. I think he's the one that came over from the Bears.
Yeah. Tevin Jenkins was one of the better free agent offensive linemen. And the Seahawks were interested for a while, but didn't close the deal, of course, as they ever do.
Yeah, and I think he was a former first-round pick, if my memory serves me well. So we're doing a little bit there to boost some of that. But let's talk at quarterback position. Obviously, we did this sort of swap with the Eagles, we gave the Eagles Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the quarterback that we drafted a couple years ago from UCLA, a very slender quarterback, kind of a running guy, a Lamar Jackson or a Deshaun Watson backup kind of guy, but he never really developed in Cleveland. Would probably have been cut otherwise. So we shipped him over and took Kenny Pickett back. So we gave a 2025 fifth-round pick and Dorian Thompson-Robinson for Kenny Pickett. So let's kind of go around the horn here. Mike, you know, Kenny Pickett is in that class of players, just like I said, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield. It's just wondering by your second team, third team, maybe you've been around the block a few times. You've had some talent. He was the first quarterback selected a few years ago in that draft. He did some okay things. He didn't really exceed expectations, and he's just been a backup for a couple of years. But what are the chances you might have a diamond in the rough with this retread quarterback, a young guy? You know, he's still got plenty of time left. What do you think?
I think his ceiling is Drew Lock, and I think he's going to be a career backup. But, you know, I mean, that 2022 quarterback class, I think, you know, people talk about this year's quarterback class being bad. 2022 was a lot worse. So the only really good player out of that quarterback class is Brock Purdy, who I would roll with if I could. I don't know why the 49ers aren't signing him long term. Just pay him $60 million a year. It'll be cheap in the long run. And he can do so many things well. So I don't think much of Kenny Pickett. Again, the key thing is that you talked Myles Garrett off the ledge and got him to resign. That's the biggest thing, because now theoretically, if you don't take a quarterback number 2, the Browns can always pair him with another top quality defensive lineman or something. And you know, because right now, to me, my perception of your team is that they don't have much of an identity. I don't know what their identity is. So they were going to try to go for the passing game thing, and it just no. So let's see what happens.
Well, I know last year, look, we saw Jameis Winston jump in throwing for 500 yards a game against the Denver Broncos on that Thursday night game, I believe. With Joe Flacco, we saw him going for 450 yards and giving Amari Cooper what he needed to set franchise records, 200 and something yards received 2 weeks in a row or something. Just went bonkers. Quarterbacks can throw for a lot of yards in a Kevin Stefanski system. Deshaun Watson wasn't the guy. In fact, the Cleveland Browns owner came out, Jimmy Haslam, and said, "Hey, we took a swing and a miss on that quarterback." And the quarterback, Deshaun Watson, allegedly took it to heart, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna come back stronger than ever." It's like, sure you will, pal. But I think it's crystal clear and obvious, especially since Deshaun retore his Achilles tendon during rehab or dancing. We don't know, but
again, you know, Deshaun Watson, man, 4 or 5 years ago, he had a duel up here in the rain with Russell Wilson, which was one of the most phenomenal games I've ever seen two quarterbacks play. It was like 38-35 or 42-38 or something like that. Fantastic game. I thought, oh man, if I was going to give up Russ, Watson's the guy I'd want. And then 4 or 5 years later, he's just finished, and he's got bad habits, and he's got all these character issues now, and it's just like, wow. I think this is his last year in the league, probably, because it's just done. You know?
Yeah, I don't see where he goes from here at all. Another player on the Browns that's not signed. By the way, I don't want to sleep on the fact that Jerry Jeudy signing an extension last year with the Browns and showing the promise he showed. I think that's a great player, because we're looking at the potential of taking Travis Hunter at number 2. I think I've sort of settled in on him being the second most talented player in the draft. There's really like 3 or 4 guys, whether it's Shadur or Cam or Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. I think there's some actual fantastic players, and you don't see a lot of these two-way players like Travis Hunter. But it's like, man, if you were able to take Jerry Jeudy at the 1 and then put Travis Hunter on the field at the same time, all right, you got me thinking, especially after, like I said, seeing 2 years of Jameis Winston and Joe Flacco lighting it up for 400, 500 yards. I know we can throw it. But at running back, I'm a little weirded out by running back, Jim. We haven't re-signed Nick Chubb. You know, he's back to squatting 550 pounds. That video just came out. I don't know. Are you surprised Nick Chubb hasn't signed anywhere? Do you think he has anything left in the tank? Does that mean the Browns are likely to draft a running back here. And any thoughts on Joe Flacco versus Kenny Pickett at the QB situation? Do you think it's likely that we take a quarterback at number 2? That was the shotgun out the back door approach. And answer any one of those 40 questions I just peppered you with.
Yeah, well, taking somebody off the draft, it's what you need to do is take the best player available, especially if you're in a position where the Browns are. I think that I don't think there's a scenario where Cam Ward falls to number 2, but if a good quarterback is available, and then you're looking at, possibly Shedeur Sanders, do you want to take a run on Shedeur Sanders? I don't think there's a scenario where Watson actually sees the field. I mean, I was unaware that he retore his Achilles. I mean, that's the first I heard of.
Well, I think he's actually ruled to be out for the entire season already because he has to restart from scratch. So that's why it's not just, okay, you got injured, then you got injured, then you got injured and sucked. And I don't think it's even that. It's that you're just physically unable. You were unavailable to play this whole season. I think
that makes the decision easy for the Browns.
Yes,
because
thankfully.
If Flacco happened to get broken half, they would run Pickett out there, and I don't see a scenario where they would actually consider, running Watson out there again. So
yeah,
they're eating, what is it, a $216 million contract that you have to pay him?
Yeah, you know what I did see somewhere, and I would have to verify it, and I don't know if any of you know, but I did see somewhere a couple days ago that maybe the insurance claim was processed, that Jimmy Haslam took out an insurance claim or something, and that the NFL is going to, it's not, his contract isn't going to count against our salary cap in the full way. And that I think the insurance is going to cover it because he's been injured for a certain amount of time. Some sort of update with that.
Well, Brian, can you share my extra screen here? I want to show you what's going on with their cap. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. It's not very big, but let's see.
Hold on. There we go.
So yeah, they got to pay him about $35 million this year in prorated bonus. His base salary is only $1.255, so he won't really make any money this year. They've already paid him in the bonus what they're gonna have to pay him. So they're but he's stuck on the team right now because the dead money hit is $131 million. So if you were to cut him, you'd be $111 million over the cap. So, but you look at 2026, it's a better situation if you make him a post June 1 cut where you can spread the dead money over 2 years. If you make it, pre-cap, it's a $50 million hit. But if you make him pre or post June 1 and cut him, it's a zero dead hit on the first year. Well, you have $80 million in dead money, but you're only $5 million over the cap. You could cut somebody else and make that money up or restructure some deals or something. So your cap situation, you get some relief next year.
It's a bad
post June 1 cut.
Yeah, it's a bad problem to have, though. I mean, it's and one good thing they did was they were able to retain Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett was playing chicken with the team for a couple of weeks there. And they decided to go ahead and scratch the check. And I think Myles Garrett was probably sitting on the fence. I mean, he would probably have taken less money to go to a contender, to walk away with a ring, sometime in his career. But he decided to take the money, but that was his choice. But good for the Browns because he is arguably their best player.
Well, he's their team identity. He really is. So
aside from ripping his helmet off and bludgeoning somebody with his helmet, I mean,
that was self-defense.
No. Don't get me wrong, Brian. I think Myles Garrett's a good guy. I think he's a good guy. As Roger Waters.
Mason Rudolph did not call him an N-bomb. Okay, Stop saying that bullshit, Myles.
But Myles was backpedaling, getting attacked by 3 people when he swung while retreating. He was not advancing; he was retreating while 2 linemen and the quarterback were attacking him. He swung while
As-
retreating. That was self-defense.
Okay. Yeah.
As David Gilmour would say, it was a momentary lapse of reason, right?
Yes. Well, look, Myles Garrett, he's sick of losing. You know, he's said, I'm sick of losing. But the problem is, defensive player of the year, 2-time defensive players of the year don't grow on trees in the prime of their career. Pot committed to Cleveland, the co-owner of the Cleveland Cavaliers. It didn't make sense to have a breakup because we could never get a fair value back. If he's
Right.
going to go to a contending team, what is that? 6 teams, 8 teams? We're not going to trade Myles Garrett for 2 picks that are number 24, 25, 26, 27. No thanks. Like that.
Right.
We'll just keep him. We'll play chicken with you. We'll sit you after, the whole season if you want.
And they sure as shit aren't going to trade him in division. You know, he's not there. There's no scenario where he's going to Baltimore.
Right. Oh, let me touch you on update on this. It says Watson suffered a torn Achilles in week 7 of 24 season and a second tear this January of 25, requiring another surgery. According to multiple sources, the Browns' insurance policy covers $58 million for injuries occurring between the start of 24 offseason and the start of the 25 offseason, including 12. If Watson's unable to play in 25, the Browns could recoup over $44 million, which would be credited to their 2026 salary cap.
Okay.
So
Christmas has come early, huh?
Yeah.
There are question marks. My understanding is that there are question marks on, insurance companies scrutinizing claims, this, that, and the other, and it's not confirmed, but it's interesting. There's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, if nothing else. So, okay. Any other thoughts on the Browns? I mean, just pick number 2. I'm sort of hearing that they've settled in on Travis Hunter. We could use a wide receiver and we could use a defensive back. Denzel Ward keeps getting injured.
Yeah. I think you ought to lay a futures bet on him, Brian. You need to lay a hundo on him, to win $20,000.
There you go.
That's it.
There you go.
All right. Maybe I will, gentlemen. Maybe I will. All right. Let's talk about the Steelers. I'm not going to bet on them. But hey, Mason Rudolph, you guys brought up Mason Rudolph. There he goes, returning back, 2-year deal. So good for him. What about DK Metcalf? Let's just kind of stop there and go to Mike. You are a DK Metcalf aficionado, sir. What are the thoughts? Bittersweet seeing him leave your beloved Seattle Seahawks?
Yeah, the thing is, you gotta love what DK could theoretically do on the field, but he doesn't do it all the time.
Yeah.
He is probably underperformed his physical talents. He doesn't fight for the ball very well when there's guys on him. He has his lapses in judgment. He gets into fights. He's easy to rock. I think it was time to go. He didn't have a very good season. He was very frustrated with the quarterback situation. And, go back and look at.
Well, good luck with your quarterback situation in Pittsburgh, by the way.
Well,
who's throwing it to him there?
But it wasn't about that. Look, it wasn't about that. Let's be honest. He's got some fiance who's some sort of hip hop rapper girl I've never freaking heard of. She's making the decisions. Okay. When the girlfriend is making the man's career decisions, instead of the agent or the man himself, it's not going to go well. Having said that, it was probably it wasn't worth it to pay DK what he wanted to make, which is about $30 million a year. He's not a $30 million a year player as good as he was. And I'm just going to say it again. Last year, if the Seahawks, instead of being focused on Byron Murphy, who was a stiff that they took with the 16th pick, they could have traded down to 23 with the Vikings, who were trying to get, or the Jaguars, who were trying to get up, and taken, Brian, what was the guy? Brian Thompson from, was it Ohio State? Engelman? Tim, wide receiver who was fantastic, and they wouldn't have this problem.
Wait, who were Brian Hartline is the? Hold on,
the receiver who went to the after the trade to the Jags last year. I forget his name, but I'll look it up. But
okay,
they could have prepared for this. The Seahawks are not a forward-looking organization. I realize John Schneider loved DK. I would have liked to have gotten Normani. She's the one calling the shots in his life, so I expect his career to go downhill. And the thing is, if you look DK Metcalf 2020 highlights, that was his best year. with Russell Wilson firing the ball all over the field. And you can see why DK has been very frustrated with Geno Smith the last 3 years, because he just doesn't get the service he used to get when Russ was the quarterback. And to me, the Steelers trading for DK Metcalf and then deciding not to repair him with Russell Wilson it's like, I'm gonna buy a Tesla Cybertruck. Oh, but I don't want a charging station in my house. No, I'm not gonna. No, I don't need one of those.
No, why would you?
I'll worry about. Yeah, maybe I'll put gas in it or have a diesel truck tow it to a truck. It's like insane. So the Steelers have to be thinking of something else at the quarterback position. Probably see that in the draft.
Aaron Rodgers still on the table. Aaron Rodgers.
I would have personally reteamed him up with Russ over Aaron Rodgers at this point in their career, but we all know the problem there. The problem there is that Arthur Smith and Russell Wilson weren't getting along. Why? Because Russ kept changing the plays at the line of scrimmage based on what he saw the defense doing. Now, the game where they cut that off, and Ben Roethlisberger says this is true, that they took that away from him. Arthur Smith went to Mike Tomlin and bitched about how Russ was changing the plays right after Russ threw for 415 yards, 3 touchdowns, scored 44 points against the Bengals. And people are like, but the Bengals had a terrible defense. Well, you know what? That's what a great quarterback is supposed to do against a terrible defense. Throw for 415 yards and 3 touchdowns and only 1 interception.
Yeah.
So when they took away Russ's ability to innovate, it was accompanied by their receiver got injured too, and guys dropping the ball. But that's when the Steelers offense went into the toilet. So the Steelers, to me, as I look at this, are shooting themselves in the foot. I would have traded for DK, kept Russ, because how well they work together, and still drafted a quarterback this year. And I think they would have. So I don't understand what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Aaron Rodgers is as good a fit for that offense as Russell was, and Rodgers is going to want to do the same thing. He's going to want to go to the line of scrimmage and say, I see single coverage on the outside. I'm going to that guy. Okay, check, kill, and go to the next play, like Russ was doing.
Yeah.
And again, Russ has had about 12 games in his career where he was given the freedom to do whatever he wanted at the line of scrimmage. That was the let Russ cook era in 2020 or 2020 with the Seahawks, and the first 4 games with the Steelers this year. And I went back and I looked at it, and not to be on the Russ bandwagon again, but his teams averaged 31.4 points per game during those 12 games. You figure it out. I don't know what's going on in Pittsburgh. It seems like a mess to me, which ought to make you happy, Brian, because you hate the Steelers.
I will always hate the Steelers. I call them Schittsburg. So they let Najee Harris go. Najee Harris may be underperforming as well at running back, a high draft pick out of Alabama. But I believe the injured wide receiver you were talking about was Pickens.
Right? Yes. Sorry,
Pickens
George
went
Pickens.
down.
Yeah, I mean, he went down, and then they stripped Russ's ability to innovate, and they didn't want him scrambling and all this, and it's like their offense went to shit. Yeah. They started averaging 12, 14 points a game. And that's what happens when you let a conservative offensive coordinator take the ball out of the hands of a Hall of Fame quarterback.
And, they teamed up Devontae Adams with Aaron Rodgers on the Jets. They weren't really able to recreate that spark there. I mean, yes, you want to see Russ with DK again, but I don't know. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There's a doomsday scenario that we've talked about on Cleveland sports.
I would have liked to have gotten more out of DK, but with his new fiance, he was going to be nothing but trouble in Seattle anyway. So I think it's better to move on and try to replace him with whatever you can in the draft.
Well, and the Steelers are traditionally pretty good draft, pretty good in the draft. And there's a doomsday scenario where one of the badass running backs from Ohio State and Will Howard end up going to Pittsburgh, where we're going to have to battle them for the next 15 years. It's a doomsday scenario for us. But Jim, thoughts on the Steelers here?
Yeah, what Mike said. I mean, if you got a quarterback like Russell Wilson, and everybody, there's a bunch of people that say Russell Wilson's washed. I don't think he is washed. I don't think he was washed in Pittsburgh. And if you got an OC, that gets ass hurt, because you got a better than average, a much better than average quarterback that wants to run an RPO situation, run pass option, let him do it. If he's successful 65% of the time, you're gonna win a lot more football games.
Yeah.
And Arthur Smith, I mean, my God, I mean, the son of the owner of FedEx, that's who he is. But he's Tomlin probably just should have sat him down and said, look, Russell Wilson at this point is our best bet. And I agree with Mike. He's familiar with DK Metcalf. They would have been in a lot better situation, if Russ was still there. I still think Russell Wilson he's not a top 5 quarterback at this time, but he is. I think he's in the top 15 easy.
Well, then that'll be good for the Giants, unless they're playing for low picks to get a Manning over there. We'll see. All right. Well, yeah, I mean, the Steelers are definitely going to be players in the draft with such holes at running back and quarterback. It just, like I said, please don't draft all the Buckeyes. I hate watching Buckeyes go play over there when we had a chance to get them. And even Ben Roethlisberger, Ben Rapelessberger, as I call him, he was right down the road. He was right there at Miami University in Ohio. I could have been drafted to the Browns, could have taken us to Super Bowls, but you pass on that local talent and it eats you up.
Ben Rapelessberger.
Rapistburger, yeah.
Rapelessberger. A couple other people that the Steelers signed, Darius Slay, 1 year, $10 million deal, and Juan Thornhill leaving the Browns and heading over there on defense. All right, let's keep it moving here. AFC South, Houston Texans, Christian Kirk. He was acquired in a trade with the Jaguars, trading a 7th round pick. Who else they got here of consequence? Just kind of scrolling.
Laken Tomlinson.
Laken Tomlinson,
he sucks. Just let me tell you, he sucks.
He sucks. They said, sir, he sucks. Cornerback Derek Stingley Jr., I believe, became the highest paid cornerback. 3 years, $90 million, 89 guaranteed. I love that. They couldn't give you that one extra million guaranteed. No fully guaranteed contracts. Just 160. Like, come on. That's a little crazy.
Yeah.
Thoughts on that big deal? Thoughts on where they're headed? Any other signings look interesting here? Texans, anybody?
No, well, that's a good signing. He's a very good player, obviously. Probably be worth it. You can see the focus on bringing in new guys on the offensive line. Several wide receiver. The focus is pretty obvious. Wide receiver, offensive line, edge, tackle. So, focusing on the defense, offensive lines, getting the elite corner, and
3 corners, cornerback. Yeah, they're tripling down.
You can see that this is a team that was very active in free agency, trying to improve their roster, and you can see where their concerns are. Pass rush, defensive line, offensive line, wide receiver is where they're going to be focused. And a couple of safeties, 3 safeties.
Yeah, they tripled up everything. 3 safeties, 3 cornerbacks, 3 edge, 3 linemen, 3 wide receivers. Yeah,
I mean, I don't know if Daniil Hunter's got anything left, but we'll see.
All right, let's talk about the Colts. Daniel Jones signing over there because Joe Flacco coming back to the Browns. Yeah, we just glossed over Flacco, guys. Just real quick before we do, Mike, who's going to win the quarterback position for the Cleveland Browns? Will it be Flacco, Kenny Pickett, or whoever we draft in the oh, by the way, the one point I wanted to make on the draft at quarterback, we just kind of blurred past the Browns. There is some thought that the difference between Shedeur Sanders and the next crop of quarterback talent, they're all going to need to be coached up. Nobody's a perfect product. You got to get to a system that works. It's really about fit and coaching them up. The thought process is that these other, the Milrose and the Jackson Darts and some of these other, the Will Howards, they're not that far off from Shedeur, but you might be able to get them in the 2nd round, 3rd round, 4th round. I don't think Will Howard will be there in the 2nd round. I think he'll get taken in a surprise. But who do you think wins the Browns quarterback position? Joe Flacco, who took us to the playoffs 2 years ago. Playoffs. Talk about playoffs. I was hoping to win a game. Or the rookie that comes in, because I guarantee you we're going to be drafting a quarterback somewhere, or Kenny Pickett. What do you, if you were guessing, Mike?
I would say it's going to be Flacco, and then the rookie that they draft is going to come up behind him. So that's what makes the most sense to me, anyway. Yeah.
I heard today that Kenny Pickett might have the inside track. We shall see. What about you, Jim? What's your prognostication on the Browns at quarterback?
I think they'll play Flacco until he stubs his toe, or has a really bad game or throws 3 interceptions. But I think they'll ride that horse until as long as they're winning.
Yeah.
I could see a scenario where they draft Sanders and
I do too.
Just throw him out there, but he's got that bugaboo about holding on to the ball too long. And he's not nearly the runner his father was, as far as after he gets the ball. And if he was like his father, Dion liked to hug the sidelines, and if he thought he was going to take a hit, he'd step out of bounds. I mean, that was his move, and Dion would not make a tackle, to save his life.
I mean, hey, he saved his career by not doing what Denzel Ward does all the time, drops his head and bangs into people and concussions and crinched neck and all that stuff. But the reason I got to Flacco there is because he went to the Colts, and that's where he was the last year. We are going to switch. Mike, did you do a screen share? I heard the bleep.
No, I didn't do it. I just went and got a video that it's not playing. So.
Oh, I'm trying to see.
I have a Jim Mora video. When you mentioned Flacco, I was going to.
Oh, I got it.
What's that?
What's that?
Playoffs? Talk about playoffs?
Yeah.
You kidding me?
No.
Playoffs?
Yes.
I just hope we can win a game.
One of the best pieces of football video of all time.
Such a classic.
Legendary. But yes, Joe Flacco was the legendary quarterback for the Colts last year. Now they have Daniel Jones. He was the former it guy with the New York Football Giants, and now he's there with the Colts. Daniel Jones, once again, trying to be one of these quarterbacks on the second, third team. Can he turn it around for them? What do you make of what's going on at quarterback over here, Mike? They drafted Anthony Richardson high. They got Daniel Jones, a lot of promise coming up from the backside there, and maybe in position to draft a quarterback as well.
I like Daniel Jones. I would have been happy to have him in Seattle as a replacement for Geno. I prefer Sam Darnold, but I would have been happy to have Daniel Jones. He torched us last year when we played the Giants, and that loss to the Giants is what kept the Seahawks from making the playoffs. One of the few games they won this year. And, he has all the physical tools, but he was clearly overdrafted. But he has all the physical tools. He should have been a mid to late first round pick. And I think he's lived up to that pedigree, and you hopefully put him in a good situation. And maybe he will be one of these guys who can show us what he can do 3-4 years down the road. Anthony Richardson is scary, bad, can't stay healthy, can't take a hit. And if the Seahawks had been smart enough to trade up to number 1 from number 5 in 2023, when the Bears put the pick on the auction block, it's chilling that Pete Carroll would have taken Anthony Richardson instead of CJ Stroud, which is what I wanted them to do. So again, I just keep coming back to these things that just stick in my craw, and I can't get rid of them. And Richardson just looks. You hope he can turn it around, but he doesn't strike me as a very smart guy, Jim.
No. Anthony Richardson, I think, is your contemporary Jamarcus Russell, Mike.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
not a great comp right there. Not a great comp.
He's got that look, and Jamarcus Russell, he had that thing on his back, where he took all that money from Al Davis and just, started eating, and the party was over after that. But I didn't see anything from Richardson last year. I mean, it was and as far as Daniel Jones goes, Daniel Jones was, if my memory serves me right, he was well endorsed by the Mannings, was he not? I mean, he was coached up by the Duke football coach, and he was endorsed by the Mannings, and that's probably why he got drafted so high, and he was Eli Manning's replacement, in New York, and didn't pan out. And then, moved on to the Colts. But you know, I don't think Jones is a bad quarterback at all.
No, I agree with you, and I think that he's one of those guys that you hope gets into a good situation, a situation that's a really ideal fit for him, like Sam Darnold did last year, and then hopefully he can, because I think he's got the talent. It's just having the right situation, which is it's the most underrated thing in the NFL with quarterbacks. Is this guy a good fit for this system and these coaches and all that stuff?
Yeah. And that's where, as a Cleveland Browns fan, I looked at what they did drafting Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Was it maybe the 5th round out of UCLA at quarterback? Well, that was the Stefanski pick. That was the Andrew Berry general manager pick. That was who they selected with the skill set to coach them and groom them. And he was hot garbage, so it's like, Kevin Stefanski, 2-time coach of the year. Andrew Berry, let him cook. It's like Andrew Berry got rid of Baker Mayfield for Deshaun Watson. Why is this clown not fired? Oh, Kevin Stefanski, 2-time coach of the year.
Yeah.
He can't utilize a quarterback like Baker Mayfield because he didn't draft him, because he thinks he's too much of a clown in the locker room, trying to put on a game face and have a couple laughs in a season where it's just misery, where you can't win games and the morale is low. Like, I don't know. I don't get why the Browns brats
of things that stick in people's craws, Brian.
I know. I just, whoever you draft,
I gotta let Russ go and you gotta let Baker go. They're gone. Okay.
I know they are, but it comes down to drafting somebody with the pedigree that you can coach up, and we'll see what the Colts do. The Colts were one of the worst teams. They got Daniel Jones. We'll see if is that going to be an open competition? I'm assuming so, but it looks like the major signings they have are just essentially a cornerback and safety, dropping $2 $60 million contracts on defense, but they got plenty of room on offense to improve. We'll see how they proceed. Jacksonville Jaguars, what do you make of their quarterback spot? That was the big conversation with Trevor Lawrence. Like, how are we building this team? They got Nick Mullins now, 2-year, $6 million deal to be the backup.
I don't care. Yeah, I don't care what I said about Justin Fields before. I still like Trevor Lawrence. I think he has all the tools. Just continue to help get him some help, build around him, give him some guys to throw to, give him some guys to block for him, give him a running back. Just let it go. I think he really does have the talent. So I would say, I think people that are wanting to give up on Trevor Lawrence at this point are just crazy. And in terms of the rest of what the Jaguars did, I don't really see anything notable. So.
Yeah, like $7 to $10 million deals filling in the roster. Any thoughts from you on them, Jim? Jaguars.
I feel bad for Trevor Lawrence personally. I mean, how many head coaches has he had since the Jaguars? 4?
3 at least, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and one was half a season. Your former Ohio State coach,
Urban Meyer.
Urban Meyer ended up kicking the kicker, and I'll kick you anytime I want. I'm the head coach. Well, you're gone, and
if he was winning games, I'm sure he'd be fine, kick or no kick. But he wasn't winning games on top of it. You don't get away with stuff when you're losing games.
I just feel bad for Lawrence. Having so many head coaches. And how many times has the offensive scheme changed because of that?
Yeah, and that's the worst thing you can do to a young quarterback. And let's be honest, Shad Khan is a clown. He's a fucking clown. And
is he taking the team to England? Like, that's the rumor. They're going to take them to England.
I think he would like to.
That's the other problem, Brian, with the Jaguars. I mean, they're the most traveled football team. I mean, they're the poor sons of bitches, that have to travel across the Atlantic. At least twice a year. And that's a home game spent in London, England. I mean, who the hell wants to do that?
Yeah, and who thought it was a good idea to put a football team in Jacksonville in the first place? I mean, really? There isn't a better city somewhere we could have found for. I mean, Jacksonville's just it's like a small town. It's just
Plus, there's more sinkholes in Jacksonville per capita than any other state too.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's just.
If you guys haven't seen it, there's a comedy, a sitcom called The Good Place. Have you seen that one?
Mm-mm.
Ted Danson, and he plays God. and Kristen Bell, that little blonde girl. It's a comedy. It's actually pretty funny, and they have a running gag. I don't know how many seasons, 5 or 6 seasons, about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Like they nonstop keep hammering the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's worth a watch. Kind of funny. Not worth a watch. Tennessee Titans. They're picking number 1 for a reason. Quarterback, they have Brandon Allen and Tim Boyle. Who? Well, they're both coming in. Van Jefferson at receiver. They did sign Dan Moore Jr., offensive tackle, 4 years, $82 million. That's a pretty big deal there. Oh, offensive guard Kevin Zeitler. Yeah, he was a former Brown on the line for $9 million a year. Yeah. And a couple other pieces there, but they're starting from scratch. I know you were a big fan, Mike Bara, of the quarterback, Will Levis, but if you're the Titans, are you going to try to take best player available because Will Levis can be the guy, or
no? Couldn't be more obvious. Couldn't be more obvious. When you sign 2 quarterbacks, they're going to move on from Will Levis. I think it's pure insanity. You do not judge a quarterback after 20 starts. If you look at Will Levis's stats after his first 20 starts, and he's only started 20 games, they're basically equivalent to guys like Drew Brees, who's going to the Hall of Fame, Peyton Manning, who's gone to the Hall of Fame, Josh Allen, who's going to go to the Hall of Fame. He stacks right up with those guys. Young players, starters, quarterbacks make mistakes, especially when they're in terrible situations like Tennessee. Tennessee's probably almost certainly going to take Cam Ward. And again, as a Seahawks guy, I would have much preferred to see the Seahawks trade one of their 2 third-round picks or something for Will Levis to bring him along behind Sam Darnold for 2 or 3 years, then sign Drew Lock, who I just think, his ceiling is reached, and we all know what it is. And Will Levis still has upside. So I believe that some team is going to get lucky with Levis, but clearly the message in Tennessee is we're moving on.
And by the way, yes, that is kind of what the general consensus seems to be. But if you remember that movie Draft Day about the Cleveland Browns and Kevin Costner, there could be some trades. And, they're sitting there, Jim, the keys to the kingdom. They are in full control of the entire NFL draft. I'm sure they're fielding offers because everybody fields offers. And you just wonder if maybe Tom Brady and the Raiders might be movers. If the Browns might go, look, we're the number 2 pick. We'll give you some extra assets, but we'd just like to select number 1. Maybe we make them an offer they couldn't refuse. I don't know. If you're general manager, Jim, of the Tennessee Titans, obviously Will Levis trying to make it work out there without their star running back last year who went to Baltimore. What do you do at number 1? Is it clear cut? Would you like to trade back and acquire some assets and maybe give Will Levis some more looks, or what would you do?
Yeah, the situation they're in, I don't think anything is really clear cut, but Mike makes a good argument. I mean, Peyton Manning's first season, he was an interception machine. Yeah. If you want to go way back to the early 90s, look at Troy Aikman. He started out 1-15 was the Cowboys record, until Jimmy made that huge trade, the big Herschel Walker trade, with the Vikings. Yeah. I don't think this one season is an actual accurate snapshot of what Will Levis is. And Brian, there is a scenario where they make a deal for several other picks with dealing their first round pick. But my feeling is that they're going to go ahead and roll with Cam Ward is what they're going to do. And I'm not saying that Cam Ward's going to run out there game 1 and play. You're going to see at least probably 2 preseason games, just to see what he's like. But I think that if Tennessee does draft him, he'll definitely play this year. I'm not saying he's going to start out game 1.
Right.
But I wouldn't condemn Will Levis right now. I think he's gotten a bad rap.
Yeah, that's what Mike was saying. And look, for the sake of the Browns, I would love for us to have our full smorgasbord options available. I heard it said earlier that Abdul Carter was the most likely surefire number 1 highest ceiling potential draft pick. He's the best player in the draft. Take him. I've heard that about Travis Hunter. I've heard it about Cam Ward.
Well, here's the
I
thing.
don't know. We're all guessing.
If I was a team that needed a quarterback, I would prefer Will Levis to pretty much all the other guys after Ward and Sanders in this draft. So
even Will Howard.
If I was Cleveland sitting there with a second round pick, I'd consider moving a second or third round pick for Levis. I would, because I think he's got tremendous physical tools. You just can't ask for.
Now, I don't know if either of you saw this, but it was Coach Gruden on Barstool Sports where he does the quarterback classes and stuff. He did with Will Howard. It was really cool. I enjoyed the episode, but let's not forget height and weight. Will Howard, the quarterback of The Ohio State University, the only national champion last year. For all the people in the comment section that say the only thing that matters is winning. You got to win in the playoffs. You got to win the big game. You got to win the championships. Nothing else matters. Like it's golf, like there's obviously 22 people on the field plus special teams. It's not a one-person game, but they say only winning matters. Well, it's like, well, only one quarterback won the national championship last year. Yeah. And by the way, his height and weight is Josh Allen. His comp, he's 6'4", 230? 6'3",
big guy.
He's built exactly like Josh Allen. So it's like everything you would want. And I'm going, why don't we want him instead of Shedeur? I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think this is a debate we can have when we get to the mock draft. But
heck yeah,
I do like him a lot. I like Will Howard a lot, and I like him more the more I hear about him. So yeah,
agreed. All right, let's buzz through some of the rest of these. Denver Broncos, they get Evan Ingram. I didn't even know he left. 2-year, $23 million deal at tight end, leaving. Where did he leave? Jacksonville last year? I don't know.
I don't remember where Ingram even was. I want to say Dallas, but I don't think that's right.
Yeah, I lose track of a lot of these. I don't know. Not too much going on here. Any thoughts on the Broncos, or else I'll keep spinning?
No, I think they still have some salary cap constrictions because of the Russell Wilson thing. I believe they're just getting free of that. They're probably not big spenders. Remember the owners, they only have 16 million in cap space. They just took a few guys to fill some spots, and Dre Greenlaw is a good player, so we'll see what happens.
Okay.
They're locked in though. They got Bo Nix, and so
they solidified their quarterback position with their coach, with Sean Payton. He knows how to work with quarterbacks.
Yep.
Now they can focus on the rest of the team, but it's hard to build a house when you don't have the foundation right.
Right.
Let's go to the Chiefs. Gardner Minshew backing up Patrick Mahomes. I don't know. Bailey Zappi as well. Bailey Zappi and Gardner Minshew on the bench behind Patty Mahomes. Thoughts on that? That's interesting backups. And Kareem Hunt re-signing.
Yeah.
Juju Smith-Schuster. A lot of one-year deals. Marquise Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Kareem Hunt, Zappi, Minshew. There's a lot of names here that are doing one-year deals, championship chasing.
Well, I mean, look, Travis Kelce's probably coming into his last year. This looks like a team that's lining up for a 1 year or window's about to close for a while thing. And so they're just re-signing guys to 1 year deals, and they'll maybe take it down a notch next year. But this year they think they can still win it. They got to the Super Bowl last year. Why wouldn't they think that? So there they are.
Right. They got tackle Jalen Moore, 2-year, $30 million deal. Offensive guard Trey Smith, the franchise tag, $23 million. So they're putting money into their offensive line. Smart when you have Patrick Mahomes. Mm-hmm. You can't ignore that. But
that's what let him down in the Super Bowl. Mahomes is pretty average under pressure. A lot of guys are really good under pressure. Mahomes is not, and that's cost them now 2 Super Bowls. When Tampa was able to pressure him, and Philly was able to pressure him, and they were not very competitive in either one of those games.
And I'll tell you what, watching Philly, you heard Myles Garrett wants to leave, and you go, well, maybe we'll draft Abdul Carter. Could you imagine Abdul Carter on one side and Myles Garrett on the other?
Yes, I could, and I'll bet there's some Cleveland fans getting tinglers just thinking about that.
Right, dude. Look, we watched the Eagles go hog wild on the Chiefs and went, oh, we could do that if we put 2 of the best in the business on the same line. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. Well, let's talk about the Raiders. This is both of your backyard team. Geno Smith. How cool is it? Let me just say, being Seahawks people living in Las Vegas and you get your boy Geno Smith to come into town. Mike, you had to be the happiest guy on earth, right?
I wouldn't give you $50 and a 6-pack for Geno Smith, much less $66 million, $120 million in a third-round pick. John Schneider, I don't like you, but you fleeced Pete Carroll on that one. Look, Geno can do more things than you think he can. He every so often he'll make a play and you're like, Geno Smith just do that? It's like, wow. But in the big moments, at the big time, when the pressure's on, he wilts every time. And so he will be a serviceable 9-8 kind of quarterback while the Raiders sort out what they're going to do there in the future. So good for them. The rest of the signings were logical. Max Crosby, one of the better pass rushers in the league. Extend him now. Smart move.
3 years, $106.5 million.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how much of this is Pete and how much of this is the GM. It sounds like Pete's just coaching, which is a smart move for the Raiders. I will just tell you, with the prices that they want for Raiders tickets, I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go. Maybe when the Seahawks come next year, but not this year.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Jim, I mean, look, like I said, Tom Brady buying into the ownership group. They get Geno as a stopgap, but I mean, they're not sitting too far back in that draft. Do you think they're thinking quarterback that high, or what do you do if you're the GM here? Max Crosby's a huge signing. Like that's the Myles Garrett that you want. Lock in that defensive disruptor. Huge deal, very important. But they're going to be drafted at the top of the group right there, and quarterback is huge. What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, I could see a scenario where they draft a quarterback. Mike's right. The only scenario where me, Mike, Dave, and Regina go to a Raiders game is if the Seahawks have a road game. And I don't think they're coming down here this year, but their Raiders are picking at number 6, and I could see them taking a quarterback, even though this is a weak quarterback. Maybe Jalen Milroe, falls to number 6, and then Geno keeps the tent poles up, for a couple of games, and they trot this guy out. Kyler McCord is another quarterback out of Syracuse, who's a lot of people are, I think he's kind of hiding in the weeds, and I could see a scenario where they take McCord.
Well, look, Kyle McCord was not good enough for the Buckeyes, and he ended up at Syracuse, and he set records over at Syracuse. Right. Remember, Joe Burrow wasn't good enough to be a Buckeye quarterback. He went to LSU and won a Heisman in a Natty. Like that's how deep the Buckeye quarterback room of Will Howard coming out with pedigree, knows how to win. Justin Fields, look at the Houston Texans. They're doing okay down there with the Buckeye quarterback. So, something to consider. Yeah, the Raiders are rebuilding. We'll look, everything is going to be new with the Raiders moving forward. It's just, it's a new game in town. Good luck. Pete Carroll, do you think he has anything left in the tank to lead a franchise? Mike's shaking his head no.
The game has passed Pete Carroll by. It passed him by in 2020, give or take. That's when I was done with him. When I just said, look, it all depends with Pete on who the coordinators are. Okay. Because if the coordinators are given real, true authority over what they're doing, and Pete's just the rah-rah guy, they'll have some success the first year or two. But if you actually ask Pete Carroll to game plan or strategize or manage the game in game, you're going to be very disappointed with what you get, because the Seahawks were the most undercoached team in the league the last 4 years he was here, as far as I'm concerned. And for the first time last year, I finally felt like there was a game or two where we outcoached the other team. I hadn't had that feeling in Seattle in a long time. Good luck, Las Vegas, with Pete Carroll. He's a nice guy, but maybe not that nice.
Addition by subtraction, perhaps.
Well,
all right.
Anybody who's friends with Rachel Madcow can't be that good a person.
All right, let's talk about the Los Angeles Chargers. Taylor Heineke and Trey Lance. That's a name. Man, name a more disappointing player than Trey Lance and Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
A player that you've had to trade so much draft capital to get and be so disappointed with the results.
Well, whoever thought Trey Lance could play besides the 49ers anyway. That was one of the weirdest. You trade all the way up there and you take Trey freaking Lance. Okay. The rest of that list,
But wasn't that a case, Mike? Wasn't that a case of like Jalen Milroe? You go, well, he has the physical tools. He's an athlete. Maybe we can coach him up at the position. Maybe he's not a quarterback, but he's so, exceptionally gifted as an athlete. We can change him. We can change him.
I just think it was a case of an organization panicking and thinking they needed a quarterback.
Wasn't he with the Cowboys last season?
Yeah, he was with the Cowboys. Played.
Yep. I heard he was moved up to Canada. Seriously, I heard he was going to play.
Doesn't look like it. At least he's coming to Chargers training camp. So
Yeah.
I would suspect that Jim Harbaugh heard something from his old buddies in San Francisco about Trey Lance that made him think, well, I'm going to give this guy a chance. The other signings on there that I think are interesting: getting Khalil Mack back, Mekhi Becton as a tackle or a guard, pretty decent player. Tyler Conklin can be a productive tight end, so I like those.
Yeah, they moved off of Joey Bosa too. Huh?
Yeah. Because they had, and Najee Harris. So, I mean, you want to look for the first edge off the board. It might be the Chargers.
And Jalen Reagor, Mike Williams. I mean, they're serviceable vets. They've, maybe their best days are behind them, but yeah, Reagor never really lived up to his hype. But once again, guys with potential. And Mike Williams, he was a home run hitter for a lot of years, bounced around. Now he's back with the Chargers. And Khalil Mack re-signing. Yeah. Okay, you forget about Khalil Mack and how much of a disruptor he is. $18 million on a 1-year deal. So I don't know. Maybe the Chargers are one of those teams to kind of keep your eye on this season. All right, let's scroll past them. NFC East, the Cowboys, Joe Milton. See, he was another guy people were starting to ask, should you trade for some of the scraps instead of worrying about it in the draft? They got him from the Patriots for a 7th-round swap with a 5th-rounder. Miles Sanders at running back, Javonte Williams. Oh, wow. Okay. At running back, yeah, he's been underperforming. Paris Campbell, former Buckeye. I don't know. What are the Cowboys? Are they trash? Are they a team that can turn it around? I heard there were a lot of Dak Prescott rumors to Cleveland about a month and a half ago.
Yeah.
What are the Dallas Cowboys going to be this year?
Fourth place.
Yeah, fourth place.
Yeah, the Redskins are a lot better football team than the Cowboys are at this point.
Yeah,
But Mike can't wait to talk about the Redskins.
The Redskins, yeah. Look, I just checked the Cowboys salary cap, and they could actually trade Dak and not take a cap hit this year.
They're kind of committed to Dak, though, right? They're pretty pot committed.
Well, right now,
I think, yeah. Go ahead, Mike.
Well, if they did a designated at a post 6-1 trade, they would actually save $2 million under the cap and go from 37 to 39 million if they traded Dak. So I think the most interesting move there is Joe Milton, who people liked last year, and people liked some of what they saw. Some people liked him in the draft. Maybe they are a landing spot for Shedeur Sanders. If they do that, wow, Dak to Cleveland for the top pick or one of the top picks in the 2nd round could happen. Could happen.
Yeah, I'm not super keen on that, but I have heard it bandied about. And they kind of said that maybe the Browns general manager, Andrew Berry, and maybe Stefanski weren't completely on board with the Deshaun Watson thing. And the owner gave him the green light and said, all right, let's go for it. Don't worry. If it doesn't work out, I'm not going to hold you two responsible. We're not going to kick you guys out. That's sort of the rumor that I've heard. And it's like, well, maybe that's the only way that they avoid losing their jobs for how that played out. But all right, well, we'll keep our eyes peeled. They spent $80 million on Osa on the defensive line there. So that's a pretty big defensive signing. Giants, so you think that the Giants are going to finish ahead of the Cowboys, Jim? Is that what I was gathering that from the 4th place team? Russell Wilson and Tommy DeVito? Jameis
It wouldn't
Winston.
surprise me one bit. I think the over under on the Cowboys this year is 7.5.
Oh, okay.
I think a good bet is the under on this. You know, and as far as trading Dak Prescott, I think that'd be a big ego hit to Jerry. You know, Jerry don't like his ego hurt. You know, because Jerry likes him some Dak Prescott. You know, he paid him all that money,
Yeah.
and by paying him all that money, that's Jerry's way of saying that he made a mistake if he moves off him, and Jerry is not one to admit he made a mistake. So I don't see Prescott going anywhere.
Mike, what about you?
The over under on 7.5. I would be all over the under. I think they finish in 4th place in the East, and I think they're going to be picking high next year in the draft.
Well, I'm just saying they could, and they certainly shouldn't have given him that ridiculous contract. They shouldn't have given him the previous ridiculous contract they gave. So
the thing is I think, Mike, they paid him too late. You know, and they let all these other numbers come in, you know, as far as what quarterbacks are going to make, and they should have just pulled the trigger, you know, a little earlier and scratched that check to him.
That's got to be a pretty favorable deal if you can trade him less than 2 years after signing him, and save on the cap with a post 6-1 designation. Wow, that's a pretty team friendly deal. And I would keep an eye on that draft day. I would keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
Well, looking at the Giants on draft day, the quarterback room of DeVito, Wilson, and Winston.
Yeah.
I mean, are they trying to take quarterback there? I mean,
yeah,
you know.
Well, no, they're not. They're definitely not taking a quarterback. Wilson.
I keep hearing they want Shadir Sanders at 3.
Right. I know. Russ wins that job. Jameis is the backup. And DeVito is driving a yellow cab in Boston somewhere.
You know what's weird? I looked at this and someone kind of made the comparison. They just paid Darius Slayton a 3-year, $36 million deal, and that wasn't too far off from what they wanted to pay Saquon Barkley, but they're like, no, we don't want to waste that kind of money on a running back. Yeah. And it's like he led the Eagles. Like all the success he saw from the Eagles all stemmed from the running back position. And yeah, this year being a super big running back class. But we'll see. Talking about the Eagles, they got Dorian Thompson-Robinson, like I said. They re-signed Saquon. They got him for 2-year extent, about 20-21 a year. Not too bad. A.J. Dillon backing him up. I mean, look, Lane Johnson, they extended him a little bit at offensive tackle. They're kind of keeping their core in place. What do you make of the Eagles' likelihood of repeating?
I think it's pretty good. The only thing you have to worry about is them outlawing the tush push, which is a guaranteed 7 points for them when they get down inside the 1 or 2 yard line. If the league doesn't do that, which I don't think they should, I think the Eagles are right there to contend again this year. They got lots of draft picks, especially in the middle rounds, the mid to late rounds. So they got a bunch of 3rd and 4th round picks. So we'll see what they do.
And Mike, they brought up the tush push, but it didn't pass, right? Like they were considering.
Right, but it's only tabled. It means it comes back in the meetings in May, which means they could still ban it in May.
Oh, it could come back in May. Okay.
Yes. So and there are people that seem to want it banned, and I'm just like, why did they ban jumping over the line on field goals? When Cam Chancellor did that the first time, and then other guys for other teams started doing that play was spectacular. And they banned that. Troy Polamalu, and then
Polamalu was probably the best at it.
And by the way, remember when Myles Garrett from a standing jump went up over the lineman and then blocked the kick to win that Indianapolis Colts game 2 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, so it's like it's one of those things where if you don't like it, stop it.
Yeah.
If the other team has an athlete that's that good, I do believe it was Cam Chancellor who did that first.
Okay.
For the Seahawks in 2015 or so. If you don't like it, stop it. And I think that's a terrible rule change. And hopefully they don't do this. And if they don't, I think the Eagles are right there again. Otherwise, they may have some red zone problems next year. We'll see.
Perhaps. Yeah. Zach Bond, 3-year, $51 million linebacker deal for them. Any other thoughts on the Eagles? You know, Jim, likelihood of repeating. Obviously, they're right at the top there, but anything surprise you about them or?
No, it's other than, it's very hard to repeat, and I think that they've still have their core there with them, and they've got just as good a chance this year of winning as many games as they did last year. So, Jalen Hurts has proved that, he's a top tier quarterback and he can play.
He's legit.
Yeah, and I had if you remember, beginning of last year when we were doing this, I had the Redskins finishing above the Eagles, and Brian, you said no, you thought the Eagles. You were correct.
But I will tell you, you were onto something with the Washington Redskins Commanders. Every time I talk about the Cleveland Indians, I'm like, ugh, the Guardians. Like I can't even get it out. It's such a bitter
Cleveland Indians.
It's the Cleveland Indians.
To be the Indians. Yeah.
What's his name, Brian? Chief Wahoo?
Yes, Chief Wahoo. And Louis Sockalexis, the first Indian player to break that barrier. It had like the other sports writers were making fun of Cleveland. Oh, look, we're playing the Cleveland Indians. They got the Indian players. Okay, we'll be called the Cleveland Indians then. It's like we took the N-word and turned it around, and we're like, hey, check out the Cleveland Indians. We'll be that team. Yeah, we break barriers here. Frank Robinson, first black coach in the American League. That was the Cleveland Indians. First black player in the American League, Larry Doby with the Cleveland Indians. Like, we break barriers. Instead, we got whitewashed and lost all of that cool history. Now we're the Guardians. I don't even like saying it. Well, let's talk about the Commanders. Blah, Redskins. So, look, they were one of the breakout teams from last year, and now they signed Deebo Samuel. We could start there and talk about that. They also have Josh Johnson and Marcus Mariota at quarterback. Jeremy McNichols at running back, free agency signings. Noah Brown re-signed. Michael Gallup signed at wide receiver. KJ Osborne and Deebo Samuel, along with Zach Ertz. So they have been busy retooling this team. What type of impact will Deebo Samuel have on the team, Mike?
He's a big physical player. He reminds me of Rod Smith, who used to play for the great Denver Broncos teams in the 1990s. Big, strong guy who could also carry the ball. And I remember them handing the ball, Mike Shanahan handing the ball to Rod Smith and him just pounding into the line of scrimmage and running through people. And Deebo can do some of those same things. He's been a little bit injury prone, but I think the key thing too is it Laramie Tunsil? Yeah, they signed Laramie. They traded for Laramie Tunsil. So they're just working to continue to build around it. And look, Jaden Daniels is the thing. And if you've got Jaden Daniels, you just got to keep feeding him and protecting him. So I think they're a team that is maybe one. If they have a really good draft this year, they're right there. They could upset everybody again next year because they are really good, and Jaden Daniels is really good.
Yeah, former Browns kicker Zane Gonzalez re-signed, and look at that, Bobby Wagner. You're familiar with Bobby Wagner?
Yeah, I don't think Bobby's got a lot left, but he doesn't have the foot speed he used to. But if you run right at him, he will still meet you and send you flying back. So he can still do that. He's still a big run stuffer in the middle.
How old is Bobby Wagner, Mike? Who is he? 48 years old?
Yeah, 48 years old now. I don't know. He's 36. He's Russ's age. Came out in 2012. Wow. Talk about a great draft. That 2012 Seahawks draft was terrific. Got 2 Hall of Famers out of it, at least. So
yeah, those don't grow on the tree every day.
Well, if only they'd taken Chandler Jones instead of Bruce Irvin in the first round, they'd probably have 3 future Hall of Famers in that draft. So wow. But oh well. Yeah.
I remember that Bruce Irvin draft so well for some reason. Jim, they were one of the breakout teams. Do you see him taking steps forward or having a hard time taking the next step forward?
No, I think they move forward. I'm not a big Deebo guy. I'm not as high as him as Mike is, but Deebo's kind of a me guy himself. Kind of like a Diggs and a who's the other guy you mentioned, Brian, with the hair?
Odell.
Yeah. Odell's out of the league, isn't he?
Sort of. He came back for somebody, maybe I forget who. he's kind of team hopping at this point, just kind of bouncing around mid-season pickup, maybe get you over the hump, or in case you got some injuries, some depth issues there. But yeah, I actually don't even know where Odell is.
That train's left the station. I don't see Odell signing with anybody. I mean, I think the Redskins will be they'll at least maintain what they did last year, or maybe move forward and learn as to what they did last year, and just compound on that.
All right, let's talk about the Bears. Here's a guy you talk about. You don't see him getting signed. Case Keenum is still in the league. I didn't even know that. 1-year deal with the Bears. Travis Homer. There's a former Seahawk, right? Wasn't he?
Yeah.
He's a homer.
The one man on highlight reel. Yeah, Travis Homer.
The one man unhighlighted.
Oh yeah, If seriously, if you wanted to get 2 yards on 3rd and 5, he was your guy.
Devin Duvernay, Olamide, Zacchaeus, couple of 1-year contracts here. What are they doing? They're building up their line.
Yeah.
Joe Thuney, Jonah Jackson, Drew Dahlman, $42 million contract there. Put $48 million into their edge, Deo Odayingbo, 3 years, $48 million.
Yeah, it must
43 million on Grady Jarrett at defensive tackle.
Yeah.
So they're spending some money. They're definitely putting some money in, but Caleb, is he the answer at quarterback? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, they've
seen enough.
Oh, Caleb is the answer. Absolutely. He had I thought, an outstanding rookie season. I think his upside potential is terrific, and I don't see like any major issues with him cracking up in tough situations or anything like that. So I think the thing you do is you keep building his offensive tools around him. And
do you see any issues with him potentially cracking up one of his painted fingernails?
Yes, that's possible.
I was going to
crying in his mommy's lap.
I was going to bring that up.
Had to find the right segue, and you gave me a nice alley-oop there. Jim, Bears not one of the better teams, obviously. What are you guessing here? What do you expect to see? Just treading water, or are they primed to take some steps? Because that defense has been filthy from time to time. Right. Offense really trying to figure it out. Like Mike said, really got to add the pieces in place. But
right, I think they're going to be they'll be more balanced this year, because they acquired the Lions offensive coordinator. He's now the head coach.
Dan Campbell,
So defense has always been Chicago's forte, and I think Johnson brings a lot more to the table, as far as the offense. But yeah, they probably brought a manicurist in, in the locker room, to take care of Caleb. But I'm not a big Caleb guy. I think he's probably he's really emotional, and he wears a lot on his sleeve. But he has his times, and maybe coach can bring that out of him.
We shall see. Yeah, the Lions, of course, they're up next. Kyle Allen coming in at quarterback. Tim Patrick re-signing. He's had some moments over there, but I'm not seeing a lot of big name much going on with them.
I'll tell you what. I look at that list. DJ Reed is a really good football player. He's corner. Okay. He played for Seattle for a few years. Played with the Jets. Was excellent. Really good football player at corner. More of a nickel corner than anything else, but good player. And you look, what happened to the Lions last year is tragic, because they, I think, had the best team if it hadn't been for all the horrible injuries on defense. And it's a shame they didn't win a Super Bowl. And I think you look in the draft, this is going to be defense for them. So
that was the big thing after their big injury. It was like, oh, they're going to get Myles Garrett. They're going to trade for Myles Garrett. We're like, no, stop it. You don't trade Myles Garrett. I would go down with the ship instead of giving Myles Garrett away for free.
Right.
You can't possibly accumulate enough talent in return. Lions, Jim?
Unfortunately, they lost their OC and their DC. Aaron Glenn went to the Jets, and and Ben Johnson went to the Bears, and Ben Johnson stuck it out last year because it's like Mike said. They thought that was the year. Then who their pass rusher that got hurt, Hendrickson, I mean,
Aiden Hutchinson.
Agent
Yeah.
Hutchinson.
Probably the best,
Henderson's-
one of the best edges in the league.
Yeah, that was
Max
that
Crosby,
was-
Miles Garrett, Hutchinson. Like there's like 5 guys that are just
Yeah, that was
nightmares.
a knife in the thigh right there. I mean, that was just bad when that happened. And Ben Johnson stayed there an extra year because he thought that was going to be the year. And a lot of it, it just says a lot. Where your OC and your DC, go ahead and take the job. I don't know why Aaron Glenn took that job with New York, but or New Jersey, but I mean it's. I think the Lions take a step back, at least a game and a half, but they're still going to be a solid football team, and I still think their head coach is. I mean, he is one of the better head coaches in the NFL. A lot of people call him he's a former tight end from the Saints. And they think they thought he was a clown, with biting the kneecaps, and all that stuff. But I think he's a damn good coach, and I think the Lions. I still think the Lions win the NFC Central. So.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Jim. Head coach in the NFL, it's like the captain's chair on a starship in Star Trek, right? When they hold out the seat for you, you take it. You got to say yes. You don't have a choice. Oh, no, I want to wait for the Enterprise. I'm not going to take the Constellation. You don't do that. When they hold out the head coach's chair, I think you just take a shot.
Yeah, it's one of 32 jobs in the world,
Yeah.
and you take it, even though it's the Jets, and the Jets haven't had a quarterback since number 12.
Nope.
Well, and that is the unfortunate byproduct of being badass. If you're fantastic, you're going to get all of your assistant coaches poached. The Ohio State Buckeyes had the same exact thing happen to them.
Yep. Chip
Kelly gone and their defensive coordinator gone. One to Penn State and one to the NFL. He's on the Arizona Cardinals. So it's like, but look, when you're the number one college football program in the nation, and you can get someone like a Chip Kelly to come in and settle down with, I don't know. I'm just might mess around and win a national championship and go back to the pros. All right, cool. Thanks for stopping by, Chip. See you later.
Yeah.
I think
which other NFL retread would like to come back to the Ohio State Buckeyes and then get poached the next year? Okay, I guess it's a revolving door, but doggone it, we keep losing our coordinators.
Yeah. I think a lot of the Chip Kelly thing, you could see the writing on the wall with all the NIL BS, and I mean, it's just become, they're a farm organization for the NFL now. I mean,
yeah.
The Tennessee quarterback situation.
Tennessee quarterback put his foot down and said, "I want $4.5 million." They're going to show him the door. See ya.
Yeah, he got it today. Where did he go? He settled where?
Somebody was willing to pay him. I don't remember.
Yeah,
I don't know.
All right, let's talk about the Packers here. Mercole Hardman, 1-year deal. They dropped $77 million on Aaron Banks, offensive guard.
Yeah.
Nate Hobbs, cornerback. All right, $48 million there. I don't know. Green Bay Packers, they're a pretty organic team by nature. Not a lot of razzle dazzle in trades. Not a lot of razzle dazzle in general. Any thoughts on the Packers?
No, good solid team. Jordan Love's a good quarterback. They got a good future. Let's see how they do in the draft. That's about all I got to say about it.
Yeah. Jordan Love took a little step back last year, but good solid team. Only team without an owner.
Yeah.
They're surprisingly still a top organization, even though, they don't have an owner, just a bunch of shareholders. So,
by the way, I'm sorry, I was just going to add the Tennessee starting quarterback, Nico, he's committed to play for the UCLA Bruins now. So they must have showed him the money.
Really?
Showed him the money, UCLA. Yeah.
Well, he goes from a no income tax state to a large income tax state. So he's probably
going to make double and end up earning less.
He's going to break even on that deal.
That is such a good point. That point needs to be out there in the ecosphere. That I haven't heard that brought up enough. Yeah, it's so unfair to go to Florida and have no income tax. Then you try to
Tennessee, no state income tax, and you move to California. your $4 million just turned to $2 million. He's going to be scratching half of that check to the state of California.
Yeah,
they're a mess.
All right, well, good point on that. All right, let's bounce to the Vikings. 2 moves at running back. Aaron Jones re-signing 2-year, $20 million, 13 guaranteed. I like Aaron Jones. Jordan Mason stepped in admirably for the 49ers, and then they traded and made some swaps over there. So they've kind of retooled and locked in their running back room, which is good because they're going to a new quarterback. The question is it going to be Aaron Rodgers? Is it going to be J.J. McCarthy? They got rid of Sam Darnold, so that's a big question. No new quarterback moves here. What else here? Defensive tackle Jonathan Allen, $51 million deal. Will Fries, offensive guard, $88 million deal. That's a big deal for a guard, for sure. And yeah, I don't know, some other stuff. You gentlemen have any thoughts on the Vikings and what they do at the quarterback spot?
Will Fries and Ryan Kelly, 2 guys I would have liked to have seen the Seahawks sign. For those amounts, I'd be fine with that. We have the cap space. We didn't do it. Once again, we sat on our hands. They're crazy. They have a Super Bowl window. They have a Super Bowl window right now. What are you even waiting for on Aaron Rodgers? Aaron Rodgers is the only quarterback available to you right now that can win you a Super Bowl this year. He's had 28 touchdowns and 11 interceptions last year in one of the worst situations in football. And you can say anything you want about him as a person. You can say, oh, he's selfish, he's this, he's that. The guy likes to play football, and the guy likes to win. And if you want to win with those receivers you have, you're nuts not to sign this guy. In fact, you're nuts not to give him anything he wants in terms of salary. J.J. McCarthy, give me a break. He didn't even make it through his first NFL training camp, and he's shown nothing. So the Vikings, if I was a Vikings fan, I would be apoplectic that they have not already signed Aaron Rodgers. That's what they need to do to have a chance because they have a window. They have enough good players. They could make a run at it with the right quarterback, and they just don't have it.
So you would advise them to go full Brett Favre mode and grab a former Packer quarterback and bring him in to the Minnesota Vikings.
I mean, if you're Aaron Rodgers, you don't want to be a dick and do that, but it's like, look, it's his best chance to win another Super Bowl, which is what I think he wants to do.
Football's football, work is work.
That's where he wants to go. Yeah, I mean, there's talk on the news the last couple of days that that's what Aaron Rodgers is waiting for. He's waiting for the Vikings to assess J.J. McCarthy after his injury, and he's sitting in the weeds and waiting, hoping that J.J. McCarthy stubs his toe. But you're not going to see anything in OTAs, as far as what J.J. McCarthy is or what he isn't. He won the national championship with Michigan, a BFD, But I think, Brian, strangely enough, Rodgers has taken that Brett Favre career path. And that is just weird. I mean, it is.
The Jets on top of it. It's so weird.
Yeah, going to the Packers' biggest rival, which is the Vikings. They're right next door. They're in the same division. The NFC Central. But I think there's 2 teams that Rodgers wants to go to. And the Vikings is probably number 1, and I think Santa Clara is 1A.
Yeah,
where he's from. He's from the great free state of California, the Northern California area. And I could see Santa Clara picking him up. If they don't make the Brock Purdy deal.
Yeah, and it will be interesting to see what happens. Now, is Brock Purdy still under contract, or is he full free agent? Is he just eligible?
Is under contract. He is under contract, but he wants a new deal. So.
I mean, he's like, of course, he's making peanuts in comparison. I would want a new deal as well. Deltona Doug asking any opinions on the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL entering next season. Now, is that the top 5 current quarterbacks, not the top 5 quarterback prospects, I would imagine. Well, Jim, we have you up on the screen here just for a little sidebar. Who are some of your top 5 quarterbacks in the current NFL? Or you, Mike, whichever one wants to jump in first.
Well, Jim's big, so we'll let Jim go big.
You're big, Jim. Go.
Big.
Is Patrick Mahomes is still on the top 5, right? You can't.
Yeah, Mahomes is still top 5.
Is Hurts solidly in the top 5 now? He's proven it.
he's probably there just because of the fact they won the Super Bowl. I think Josh Allen is him and Mahomes are 1 and 1A.
Okay.
Lamar Jackson, for all his failings in the playoffs, he's still there. Aaron Rodgers, I think he's running the middle of the pack right now. I mean, he's probably 10, 11, 12 as far as quarterbacks go.
I have Baker Mayfield around 10 or 12, or sometimes he's 8 or 6.
Yeah, I think he's more 8. I'd have him about 8.
Yeah,
I agree with that. I agree with your list, Jim. I mean, I think it's Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, and for me, number 5 is the hard one. I'd probably go with C.J. Stroud because he can do things with his legs, and he just needs a little bit better surrounding. They say he had a down year last year, but man, did you see some of the plays he made in some of those games? This guy is just a playmaking machine. So
where do you put San Diego's quarterback? Justin Herbert.
10, 11, 12.
Yeah. He's got the tools, but he's got to show us some more.
Yeah, he's got the tools, but he has those bad games, and you just go like,
well, we got to see a little bit more.
I personally think the up and comer, I think is Bo Nix. I think Bo Nix has a lot of upside.
Yeah. Agreed. No, I like Bo Nix a lot.
And I still like Mayfield, Brian. I do. I think Cleveland made a huge mistake by letting him go.
I concur 100%.
And I felt like Seattle made a huge mistake when he was a free agent and they didn't go after him when all they had was Geno effing Smith. So,
Well, one quick point on Baker when the Browns moved on from him. Remember, he could have went and played for probably 12 different teams, but they held him through the draft and free agency long enough to where everybody's quarterback room was settled. And then they dumped him into Carolina with the Panthers after he could have started for any number of teams. Yeah. But it ended up for like that lost season where he ended up, but thankfully he got to learn in the Los Angeles Rams organization. Sean McVay, that definitely taught him some stuff, and he's been a very good quarterback down in Tampa. But you want to see some more playoff wins, of course. But yeah, all right. Well, good question. Thank you, Deltona Doug. If I think of anyone else that I'd like to put in the top 5 ahead of any of those cats, I will mention it. But what about the Falcons, guys? Falcons, Michael Penix. That was the big story. Kirk Cousins. We thought he was going to reunite with Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland, and they were going to cut him, and we were going to pick him up for cheap, but they held on to him. They really held on to overpriced Kirk Cousins.
Well, they've held on to him so far.
Right.
We have a draft coming up where players tend to move. So personally, if I was the Browns, I'd like the Dak Prescott deal better than I like the Kirk Cousins deal. But again, you said it, Atlanta, there's only one thing we're talking about here. It's Michael Penix. So what does Michael Penix need to make him better? And that's what you're looking at for the future.
Well, Jake Matthews here at offensive tackle, $45 million extension, keeping that offensive line strong.
Yeah. I think
biggest investment.
More weapons for the Magic Man would be what I would do if I was them.
Yeah. As long as Tampa Bay holds on to Mayfield, Atlanta is number 2 at best in that division.
Yeah. And that is kind of the conversation around Mayfield. It's like, oh, yeah, he won 2 division titles in the NFC South. It's like, oh, come on. Nothing Mayfield does is good enough for those suffering from Baker derangement syndrome. I am telling you, it is just as bad as the other derangement syndromes you've heard of. The Baker hate is real. People cannot they refuse to admit that they were wrong on judging Baker because of his injured season. It's kind of hilarious. All right, Carolina Panthers. What do we holy shit, Andy Dalton, a 2-year deal from the Red Rider. I didn't even know he was still in the league, guys. Sorry, that legitimately surprised me. Rico Dowdle at running back, re-signing there. I don't know. I mean, Austin Corbett, former Brown. It kind of starts and stops with the quarterback, right? I mean, do they have what they need to build around?
Around Bryce Young. That's all I see with Carolina. Just keep building around Bryce Young. He had a much improved second season, so go for it.
All right, Jim, are you comfortable with the quarterback situation there in Carolina?
Bryce Young took a step forward last year. I mean, he played a lot better than he did his rookie season. But nice cat, Brian.
Yes, that's Nimbus. He's very interested in the show today. I had to say hello to everybody.
Yeah, I still think the Panthers are probably third in the division, and the Saints, the Saints got rid of their head coach, and I think they're still going to be fourth. But Panthers are going to be, what they were last year.
On the struggle bus. Yeah,
Right.
they're putting some money into that offensive line. They're trying to shore some stuff up there. Where are they picking again? They're picking number 8. They'll be at number 8.
Yeah, so they're 8.
Who falls to them? Safety Trayvon Mooring, 3-year, $51 million deal they spent on that. In defensive line, Tershawn Wharton, another $54 million deal. So, all right, they're not sitting idle. They're making some things happen. New Orleans Saints, Brandon Cooks. Man, Brandon Cooks, how long has he been in the league? I feel like he's been in the league forever, Brandon Cooks.
100 years. 100
yeah,
years.
2-year deal with the Saints. I mean, who's going to be throwing the ball there? This is your boy, isn't it, Mike Bara?
Well, yeah, I like Spencer Rattler. Again, we brought in Clint Kubiak. The Seahawks brought in him as the offensive coordinator. I was kind of hoping, rather than wasting money on somebody like Drew Lock, who we already know what his ceiling is, that we would have traded maybe for Spencer Rattler if the new organization in New Orleans didn't want him. Maybe they've decided they do want him. Derek Carr's making complaining about his shoulder. He wants a new deal.
Oh, yeah.
They're a mess. The Saints are a mess, and they're not going to be better anytime soon. So I think this year you can write it off for the Saints, and don't expect much progress from them.
Not too much progress from the Saints. Would you concur, Jim?
Yeah, the talk on NFL.com and Cowherd yesterday is Derek Carr may miss the season.
Yeah, I just saw that.
So, I don't know what kind of message the Saints are trying to send out. I mean, who wants to pick up a quarterback, that has a bad shoulder injury, like Mike said, and if the Saints are looking for a trade, who's going to pick up Derek Carr?
Yeah, nobody.
Is there a scenario where he goes back to the Raiders?
Okay.
Wow, that would be messy.
Yeah.
But it's new management, new ownership, right? Like it's new, fresh people in there at least. You never know. Kareem Hunt went back to the Chiefs. Things can happen. Who knows? I don't see them taking many steps forward. I don't know that their quarterback situation is as solved as the Falcons, but of course, it's not like Penix has a lot of games under his belt over there, and it's not like Penix has a history of staying healthy either. Maybe, which is why they wanted to keep Kirk Cousins. But once again, it's hard to prognosticate your team improving without that quarterback position improving. So,
right.
I don't know. Not a lot of other deal. Oh, Chase Young over there, $51 million deal. Chase Young, one of the best, but of course, getting older.
When did the Redskins take him instead of the quarterback? What year was that? I forget. Chase Young.
He has been a pro for 5 years.
Yeah.
So 5 years ago.
He was the number 2 overall pick, and they needed a quarterback. What year? I'm going to go look it up while you guys are talking. So.
Okay. Well, let's bounce over from that to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Kyle Trask re-signs a 1-year deal. Chris Godwin, that was a big one, re-signing a 3-year, $66 million deal, 44 guaranteed. Sterling Shepard, another 1-year deal. That's nice. A couple of tackle and a guard on the offensive line. And then a couple of small deals there. I mean, they're sort of returning most of their team and making sure that Godwin's coming back. So, Jim, the Buccaneers, you said still their division to win?
Oh yeah. I think the Bucs are the best team in the South, and like I said, as long as Baker Mayfield's on the field, I still think he's the best quarterback in the division, and I see the Bucks winning the division. You know, everybody was touting the Falcons. You know, when they acquired Kirk Cousins. You know, and we know how long that lasted. So
Yeah, not long at all.
yeah, so yeah, I like the Bucks and you know to win the division. You know, and it's like you said a couple minutes ago. You know, the you know the NFC South is arguably the weakest division in the NFL. You
Yeah.
know, so it's not a big step to win your division. You know, in that division is how you do in the playoffs.
Playoffs. Mike, what were you looking up, and did you find it?
Yeah, 2020 draft. They took Chase. The Redskins took Chase Young instead of Justin Herbert or Tua. So when they needed a quarterback,
Yeah, that wasn't a good move.
that was not.
Well, if they did that, they wouldn't have Jaden Daniels now, right?
Probably.
So, you know, maybe it was for the best in the long term. Mike, thoughts on the Buccaneers? What do they need to get over the hump? Because they're winning, but they re-signed Chris Godwin. That's a nice component.
They're a solid team that's solid everywhere. Feed Baker, give him another receiver. Just you know, just a good solid draft will help them get to that next level. And you know, I look at their roster and I think it's pretty solid. So we'll see.
And Hassan Reddick signing a 1-year deal.
Maybe a pass rusher too. You know, that's important. So
exactly. Yeah, they've had some games they sort of let slip away. All right, I think we're wrapping it up on the final division here. It's almost saving the best. We are saving the best for last.
Later, we got it only 2 hours later. Let's wrap this sucker up. All right. I got things to do, like take a nap. Anyway,
I got a dinner date.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, then look, we can just wrap on this segment, and we don't have to do the mock draft. We can
do that next week. We could do that next week without doing all of this again.
Yes,
so I'm with that.
All right. The Cardinals, Jacoby Brissett, former Brown, signing over there, and you know, Kyler Murray leading that team. That's the question. Is he going to be the person that can get it done? Trey McBride signs a massive 4-year, $76 million extension at tight end. And then some other signings here. Dalvin Tomlinson, $29 million on the line. What do you make of that largest contract ever to a tight end, Mike? Trey McBride, worth it?
Well,
a little excessive?
I went to Dave and I went, my brother and I went to the Cardinal Seahawks game in Arizona and Phoenix last year in December. And first thing is you have to truly see Kyler Murray play to appreciate how awful he is. Trey McBride is a good tight end. $76 million for Trey McBride. I'd rather poke needles in my eyes than do that if I was the owner. He's a good player, but he's not that good. And you know, LJ Collier, he's a stiff. Josh Sweat is a good signing. But this is an aimless team without an identity that just continues to be an aimless team without an identity. They just throw as much spaghetti up on the wall as they can and hope something sticks. And so far, it really hasn't worked very well for them. They haven't had a focused direction. Actually, I think in 2014, the Cardinals fell apart when they thought Carson Palmer was good enough to win a Super Bowl with, and they passed over Derek Carr with the 25th pick, who was the most obvious pick I could possibly imagine for that team. And I just feel like they haven't had an identity since. So, you know, and I'll tell you something else. Nobody in Arizona gives a shit about the Cardinals. Okay.
Really?
And that's the way most of the NFL should feel about it, because they need a dynamic personality to come into that city, into that team, and change things up. And it's not going to happen this year.
Jim, you're running the Cardinals. What do you do in the draft? Did you like any of the moves that they made?
No, they're you know, it's like Mike's. They need to go back to St. Louis, you know, and you know, maybe pick up Jim Hart, you know, as the quarterback. And
yeah, there you go.
They're plus 5,000, you know, to win the Super Bowl. You know, that's not even a good bet. I mean, I wouldn't waste my time. They're going to be fourth in the West, and you know, like they usually are. And you know, I even think Santa Clara is going to finish above them, and I really don't think the 49ers are going to do anything this year. So, No, Kyler Murray is what he is. You know, and Mike's right. They should have taken Derek Carr when they had the chance.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. They traded up. This is in 2014. They traded up and took some safety. I forget who it was. I think he was a University of Washington player. And I'm like, you seriously think you're going to win? You can contend with Carson Palmer, who another guy who just wilted every time he got in a big game. He just faded, right? And I just I looked at Derek Carr and I looked at how he threw the ball, and I'm like, this guy is a perfect fit for that team. And I just remember, that was one time I couldn't believe it. I remember in 2014, another time in 2014, Detroit Lions are on the clock. They have Ndamukong Suh and Nick Perry or whatever his name was. Both of their defensive tackles were in their last year of their contract, right? And I'm like, oh, I know what they're going to do. They're going to take this guy, Aaron Donald. Everybody says Aaron Donald's the best defensive lineman, in this draft. And here they are at 11, and he's not going to go Aaron Donald. So they're going to take the defensive tackle. That's obvious. I'm doing all my mocks. They're going to take a defensive tackle and plug him back in to replace Ndamukong Suh and Nick Foley or Nick Perry, whatever his name was. And they take fucking tight end. Who the hell did they take? I don't know. Eric Engram or something like that. I'm like, what the fuck are you thinking? Sorry. Sometimes I see these teams make these moves and I don't understand them. And I feel like the Cardinals are one of those teams.
Marvin Harrison Jr. really didn't pan out that well. He was.
Yeah, and you see him play, and he had 7 or 8 catches in that game, but he doesn't make an impression.
Yeah.
He just doesn't. It's like, wow, Marvin Harrison had 8 catches. I didn't really feel like I even noticed him out there. So.
Well, I'll tell you, we noticed him in Columbus. That's for damn sure. So if his plays are not making an impression, yeah, you got to kind of blame the team. You got to blame the quarterback. I've seen him do it.
The problem is the quarterback. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Eric Ebron. Eric Ebron was
Eric Ebron. Yeah, I remember him. He was the Lions. He was the Steelers.
I mean, it's like sometimes you see these needs, and the draft picks just line up perfectly, and you're like, why didn't they do that?
Yeah. Why not do the obvious thing?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the Rams. Jimmy Garoppolo and Matt Stafford, they both re-signed. So Stafford restructured the contract.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Garoppolo coming in for a 1-year, $4 million deal. That's not bad. Max of 13 if he gets some snaps. And Devontae Adams showing up.
Yeah.
So, okay. Tutu Atwell re-signing. What do you make of the Rams here?
Well, I don't want to like the Rams, but I do like the Rams, what they're doing. I think Jimmy Garoppolo, again, in the fourth quarter, he will let you down every time. Poona Ford is a good nose tackle type player. Sean McVay really knows what he's doing. And Les Snead building a roster. They know what they're doing. I think they are a prime landing spot for an early quarterback in round 1, a quarterback that, people don't expect to go. I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams don't take one of these quarterbacks, like Will Howard, as you brought up, in the first round. I would be a little bit surprised if they didn't do it.
Yeah, that's actually a good point because that 5th year option is such a crucial component where someone might overreach on a 2nd or 3rd round quarterback to make sure you have that extra year of controllability by drafting him at 32. Remember, Lamar Jackson went 32. They got right back in there to get that. It's a super valuable thing to reach on those quarterbacks. I'm very interested to see how many are going to go this year. I think it was it 5 or 6 that went in the first round last year. And there's always quarterbacks. It's like, oh, I didn't have him graded in the first round, but then they go in the first round. But Stafford, he's been, year after year. Is he going to retire? Oh, he had that neck thing, that head thing. That was like 2 years. Wondering he might actually just hang it up. But like you said, Mike, they do a really good job of putting together an NFL caliber roster, even in down years, that you see the plan, you see that coaching is there, you see that they're a professional organization. You can't say that about every organization, from the Jets to the Browns, or maybe the Giants. You can just throw a dart at half the league and make some jokes about them. But Jim, thoughts on the moves from the Rams?
Yeah, they're picking at 26th this year. I really don't see them picking up a quarterback. it's like you and Mike said. This isn't a real good year. For quarterbacks, and I don't see them wasting a pick on a quarterback. If a quarterback even falls to 26, there's going to be a couple. They're plus 1,300, to win the Super Bowl, which is pretty high. You lay 100 to win 1,300, and they got close last year. But they ran into a snowstorm literally, and the Rams don't play well in cold weather. They need at least one home playoff game, where they're playing indoors. They're not a cold weather team, and no, I don't see them picking up a quarterback. Stafford's an Iron Man. I mean, he's a tough guy.
He is a tough dude.
He is a tough guy. I mean, look at the beating he took in Detroit, and I don't know if you guys remember that game. I mean, I think he separated his shoulder and he came out, and finished the game,
Against Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, he showed who he was in that game.
That's one of the wildest 7-minute videos you'll ever watch. And why we wasted a timeout to give him a chance to come back in the game after the injury, I'll never know, but only in Cleveland it feels like.
That last segment where you asked me what were the top 5 quarterbacks, Stafford's in that discussion. I mean, he's up there.
Yeah, the pedigree is there for sure. Let's wrap up 2 more teams, of course, saving the best for last. The 49ers, Brock Purdy, they're trying to negotiate, but they bring in Mac Jones on a 2-year deal to sit behind him. Not a lot of action. They lost Deebo Samuel. It's like Santa Clarita. They're losing more than they're gaining here, Mike. That probably makes you happy. Yeah, how do you see the Brock Purdy situation resolving? They're probably going to pay him, right?
Well, I think what Jim said is possibly true, that they're maybe holding out to see if they can bring in Aaron Rodgers for a year. And that would really piss off Brock Purdy and his agent, I would think, because Brock Purdy has played really well. I'd love to have him. I like Sam Darnold a lot. I'm really glad the Seahawks got him, but I would if you told me Sam Darnold or Brock Purdy, I'm picking Brock Purdy, because I just think he's handled himself so well, and he recognizes situations so well, and he's got good mobility and an excellent arm, not a great arm. So, I mean, clearly they brought in Mac Jones as some sort of insurance against Brock Purdy holding out. But, the only way they're going to contend is if they did something like with Aaron Rodgers. I think the issue is, though, that they've moved a lot of guys on, a lot of their key players. Do they view themselves as serious contenders or not? Is their window open or is it not? That's what they've got to decide as they head into draft day. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of choices they make. I would pay Brock Purdy. I would just pay him.
Jim, are you paying Brock Purdy?
Yeah, I'm paying Brock Purdy. I mean, he's proven to be a very good quarterback. I mean, after being Mr. Irrelevant, in the draft and being picked last in the draft, I mean, he's panned out. And it's like what Mike said. I mean, is there a scenario? You said Purdy's still under contract, right, Mike?
Yeah, he's got one more year.
So there's not a scenario where they could move him, is there?
Oh, well, yeah, they could, because he's in the last year of his deal. Let me go look that up. But
why would, if they brought in Rodgers, why would he agree to ride the bench for a year? Keeping his fingers crossed that Rodgers tore his Achilles again.
He'd have to have a contract extension and one more year of Aaron Rodgers. Like, that would be shitty, though, to go to the bench on your own team.
I mean, after playing all these years, is he going to agree to carry the clipboard for the whole season? I mean, and I really don't think that Rodgers is the solution to Santa Clara getting to the Super Bowl. I don't see that.
No, me either. He would have been 3 years ago when they were.
I think they should ride the horse that they brought to the dance and just keep Purdy. And Rodgers can keep his fingers crossed and wish all he wants, and wanting to go to Santa Clara, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, they could trade Brock Purdy, no problem, no cap implications or anything. In fact, they'll.
I think he would, if they brought in Rodgers. I think that would piss him off.
He would ask for a trade. I'm sure.
Yeah. he'd say, I'm out of here. You know, the hell with you guys.
Yep.
Okay. Now that leads me to the final team. We've all been waiting for it. It's both of your favorite teams. Sam Darnold taking over Seattle Seahawks. 3-year, $100 million deal, $55 million guaranteed. Drew Lock backing him up. Cooper Kupp, check that out. I bet you didn't have that on your bingo board. Cooper Kupp going over there. Does he have anything left in the tank? Marquez Valdez-Scantling. He has as many names as catches, it seems like, but he's on your squad. Good for him. DeMarcus Lawrence at the edge, 3-year deal, $42 million. Jaron Reed, defensive line. Ernest Jones, linebacker, and a couple of other things here. What stands out? Obviously, we got to start Darnold and Kupp. What do you make of this?
Well, yeah, I agree. Sam Darnold, good for the Seahawks. This is not the kind of move they usually make. They don't make a big move at quarterback, but the Geno Smith situation got untenable. They went for Sam Darnold. He agreed to a very team-friendly contract.
Yeah.
And the way he played last year, 35 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, I'll take that. I mean, granted, he had Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison to throw to.
It helps.
But you get him some of those tools, and he definitely can do the job. And he made some outstanding plays during the year, and especially against us, scrambling around, innovating. They'll be able to roll him out more because Geno Smith was fast in a straight line. So if you had an open lane, he could run straight ahead quickly. But Geno was not a scrambler. And Sam Darnold can move left and right and roll him out a little bit more and do some more things with him offensively. New offensive coordinator. On defense, they re-signed the guys they needed to. Jaron Reed, Ernest Jones. I like Valdez-Scantling a lot. He made a lot of plays for the Saints, really big plays, and he's fast. I think he's over 30, but he can still run.
So I was a little too harsh on him with my joke. That was a little too harsh.
I think so. I mean, it was one of those things where I didn't have any thought that we would be signing him this year, but when I saw him play for the Saints last year, when I was trying to watch Spencer Rattler, I'm like, that guy's really good. So Cooper Kupp, toss the dice up in the air, see if it comes down for a healthy season. I think wide receiver is one of the top, 3 or 4 needs on the team. But also, again, I would have not done the Drew Lock thing. I know John Schneider, the GM, loves him, but I don't love him. And I think he's reached the ceiling of what he's ever going to be, which is not good enough.
Yeah, but hopefully on the other side of the coin, hopefully you never see him. You're hoping you don't need him, but it's relevant.
I would have traded for a young veteran quarterback like Spencer Rattler or Will Levis, which we talked about earlier, instead of doing this.
Or Daniel Jones, maybe.
Or Daniel Jones, because Daniel Jones you could have signed, because now what happens is you're really due. I think QB2, quarterback of the future, is still a need for this team. And I would spend one of my first 5 picks, got 5 picks in the first 3 rounds. I would spend one of those picks on a quarterback if I was the GM. I don't think they will because they suck at GMing. Schneider does, but that's what I do. Because I think it's the most important position in football, clearly.
Well, they say there are a lot of picks after the first 2, Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders. There's maybe 6, 7, 8 guys that toss a coin in the next 2 rounds.
Guys that are worth a damn are going to be gone by the middle of the second round because teams, if you don't get it, I see some Seahawks people like Rob Staten, who I like a lot, but he still doesn't get that NFL teams are now prioritizing the quarterback situation even more than they used to the point that they are going to take guys a round ahead of where they might have him evaluated. Oh, Bo Nix, well, I have him as a second-round pick. Great. Here's the 14th pick. We're taking him right here.
Exactly.
You're not going to wait and gamble if you need a quarterback.
Thank you. The Will Howard people, because I'm in Buckeye group, so we do strictly Buckeyes.
Mid-second round at the latest. I think he goes late first, actually.
I think he's going to be gone in the 30s. And they're like, oh, no, here's what the Browns are going to do. They're going to take Abdul Carter, or they're going to take the Heisman winner. Then they're going to take a running back. We're going to take one. And then, in the 3rd or 4th round, we're going to get Will Howard. I'm like, he's going to be gone in the 30s.
Yeah.
Like, there's no, we're going to play it smart because nobody else thinks we'll get him around then. It's like, yeah, there's like a 2-round bonus. Quarterbacks just get moved forward. Even if they're not grading out that high, it's just everybody needs badass quarterbacks. Jim, you got your quarterback, Sam Darnold. I mean, he's a reclamation project, did very well last year. And you're sort of rebooting. No DK, You got Jackson Smith and Jigba now, and Cooper Kupp. How do you see this shaking out this season?
Mike's favorite player, Jigba. Yeah.
Nick
Darnold, I think Darnold will be fine because I think the coaching staff in Seattle is pretty solid, and I think going to the Vikings for that year, I think they brought out everything that Darnold had. I mean, because they've got a great coaching staff, and if he can just play off of that and just transition to the Seahawks, with their coaching staff, which I think they have a good coaching staff. I think the Seahawks will do well this year. I really do. And as far as Cooper Kupp's concerned, I still think he's got a lot left in the tank. I really do. I mean, he was a really good receiver the last couple of years for the Rams, and kind of odd them trading Kupp, in division, But I'm not being a homer here, but there's a scenario where they win a division. I mean, I don't think the NFC West is as strong as it used to be by any means.
I don't think that the AFC North is as strong as it used to be. Its Steelers are down. Bengals are trying to figure out what they're doing. Yeah, you got the Ravens, but I mean, I've seen it. One injury away from, being wide open, and the Browns were a playoff team last year, so you never know.
That's always good money bet against the Ravens, in the playoffs. I mean,
Playoffs. Well, yeah, Puka Nacua, his emergence last year made the Cooper Kupp thing possible. You never thought that they would move on from him, but it's just that's how quick the league moves sometimes. Well, we've moved through all of the free agency stuff over the offseason that we could handle for today. Is this where we put a pin in this one? Did we want to do anything else today? Balls in everybody else's court, Jim and Mike.
I don't. I'm done talking. I think we get back together maybe next Tuesday. Let's get together Tuesday afternoon and do a mock draft walkthrough and talk some scenarios, because there will probably be some news between now and then that we'll want to talk
maybe
about.
An Aaron Rodgers decision, maybe a Brock Purdy signing, maybe some trades. I don't know. Maybe. Okay, that works. That works perfect for me.
Yeah, it is. It is interesting because 2 days before the draft, some moves do tend to get made. Sometimes moves get made a couple days before. So.
Well, you're trying to finalize. Like, I got to know what I'm dealing with. I can't go in with all of these scenarios. I got to narrow it down and just make a move. I would love to see the Browns find some sort of compensation to jump up to 1 if they think that Cam Ward is their guy. If not, then so be it. Whatever. It's their decision. But my God, with the Cleveland Browns, it's decision time, it's success time, or it's time to move on from both Kevin Stefanski and our general manager, Andrew Berry, because the Deshaun Watson thing was so bad. I don't know what type of Epstein-style dirt they have on Jimmy Haslam to keep their jobs, but my God, it's time to put up or shut up in my book. But I guess every draft gives you that opportunity to relaunch, reboot, reload, or sayonara. Time to move on. Okay, cool. Well, then, yeah, let's try to set something up early next week. What, we're penciling in Tuesday. We'll talk off.
Tuesday's a good day. Yeah, Wednesday's a busy day for me, but we could do Tuesday.
Did you say okay?
Same bat time, same bat channel. I'm down for it.
All right, let me double check one thing. What is next week? What is the date?
That would be the 22nd.
All right, let me double check my schedule. I might be performing at the comedy club.
Is it your dog's birthday or something?
My dog's birthday. No, I think I might be scheduled at the comedy club on that exact date, but let me double check, because if so, the timing would not work for 5. But I'll talk to you offline. We'll figure it out, but we'll try to make it happen next week.
Dude, just get up there and tell a bunch of Cleveland Browns jokes.
The jokes tell themselves. They're so self-evident. They're so obvious, so hack to rip on the Browns. You got to punch up. They say in comedy, you need to punch up. I'm just punching down on the Browns. All right. Well, then we'll put a fork in this for today. Thank you, everybody, for watching Strictly Football here on The Unhappy Hour with the New American Media. Jim, any final thoughts from you, sir?
No, I'm good, Brian. I'm good.
Awesome. Mike, I saw you on with Laura Ingraham. What was that about? Final thoughts? Where should people check you out?
That was actually, I just found out today that was the most watched segment on Fox News this past week. Was my segment with Laura Ingraham, which really makes me feel great. We were talking about some computer AI came out with the best odds of survival. Which state had the best chance and the worst chance of surviving an alien invasion. Virginia was number 1, the best chance of surviving. Nevada, where Jim and I live, was dead last, number 50, the worst state in the union to be in if there's an alien.
Because no water and because of Area 51?
And the same day they came out with that, we put Katy Perry up into space. What could be more provocative to aliens? Talk about provoking aliens to invade the Earth. What could be worse than that?
Well, our public school system is dead last too, Mike.
Yeah, well, it's good.
Yeah, that going for us. Do you think Katy Perry went to space? I didn't see the air quotes.
Yeah. Yes. Come on. Yes. It's a suborbital flight. It's not that big a deal in this day and age. Come on.
All right. Well, we will talk about those things and more. Mike, where do people find the clips? Tell people what the best place to find you.
Oh, just mikebara.blogspot.com. I've got clips there from all the stuff that I do. So go there.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw clips. I haven't seen like the actual whole sit down.
Or Twitter at MikeBara333. So
awesome. I'll check that out. Everybody go check him out. And of course, check out the Unhappy Hour Sports Show and the New American Media in all of the places. Signing out until next week. I appreciate you. I love you. And we'll talk to you again soon. Take care.
Peace.
Deuces.